I'd
like to call this meeting to order, the Betsy County Board of Commissioners. Today is December 12th, 2023. We're in the Frank Walter House boardroom. Roll call, please.
Cunningham.
Present.
Janot.
Here.
Markey.
Here.
Nye.
Here.
Roloffs.
Here.
Sauer.
Here.
Worsacki.
Here.
Everybody present.
Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Betsy County. I ask for your guidance with the decisions we'll make today. Please keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. I ask this in the name of your Son. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. There's one change, at least one change to the agenda, and we're going to put it like at the first item under action items above A was accept the apportionment report.
Now I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So move. The minutes from November 28th.
Make the motion to approve the meeting minutes, number 28.
Is there support? Devon? Motion and support. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So move. Brings us to our first public input. Is there anybody of the public that would like to share? Ms. Mayone?
Good morning. I'm Karen Mallon. I'm a Betsy County employee, and I just wanted to come and wish everybody Merry Christmas, first of all. And I wanted to tell the commissioners that as an employee, I'm just really excited about how the year's gone. And thanks to Katie and her crew. They've been great people. So thank you for them. All right. I'm a crier. I just want to say thanks.
Thanks, Karen, and we're very proud of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to share in public input? Sir?
Good morning, everybody. I'm bearing gifts.
Thank you.
This season.
Yeah, thank you.
Sweet.
You got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
John, don't cry.
So I'm happy to come back and share more, but this report does most of my work for me. No, so I'm just gonna highlight a couple pages for you. And then I'll let you browse this, memorize it. This is gonna be your favorite Christmas gift. And then if you'd like, I'd be happy to come back.
Trust me, we'll remember you.
So, first page as you open, I want to point your attention to the strategic direction. The statements here were crafted by our staff and board and were a direct result from the input from my conservation needs assessment that we sent to all Betsy County residents. So just to show that we are asking what our residents want us to be working on, and we're putting it into these, living documents. These are our guiding light. These are our benchmarks for success that we'll be measuring ourselves against for the next 5 years and beyond. So that's one thing. You can see sort of our trajectory there. Towards the middle, you might be interested to see exactly the middle, pages 10 and 11, the additional grants that we're bringing into the county to support the work of the Betsy Conservation District. And of course, saying kudos and thank you to our incredible volunteers and donors on the right page. The next page, 12 and 13, is sort of an at a glance by the numbers look of our year. So you can see our impact there. And then second to last page, page 18, that's the most important. That's the exciting stuff. That's what we're going to be doing next. So next year, we're updating the Platte River Watershed Protection Plan. We got a grant to do that. We're doing a tremendous amount of work to elevate the Benzie Watershed Coalition, group that gets together to take a look at why Benzie County water is at risk and solve those issues. You can see the list there. For everybody else here, I've got additional copies in the back room. If I run out, our office downtown Beulah is open Monday through Friday, 30 to 4:30.
And this is Mr. Trout from the Conservation District.
True.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I know, discussion at the, Blaine meeting that the Eurasian milfoil is somehow disappearing in spots in these lakes.
Mhm.
Does anybody understand what's going on? It was a big issue and all of a sudden it seems to be getting smaller and smaller.
It's complicated. It's very lake dependent. In that Benzie Watershed Coalition, we're watching every lake very closely, especially ones with Eurasian water milfoil. So some it's expanding, some it's detracting, some it's going away because we're doing treatment. Some it's going away for other reasons. So we're watching it very closely. No definitive answers yet.
It just seemed odd. They were getting ready to treat and it wasn't there.
And I have noticed, just in some of the boats that I take care of, Lake Ann, Pearl Lake primarily, very, very dirty this past year.
That's good anecdotal evidence. We have a grant into the state to keep that boat washing program going and create more educational
Well,
resources.
boat
for
washing is
boaters.
one thing,
Yeah.
but there's something going on in the lakes
Oh, coming
that
out of
are-
the-
causing these hulls and pontoons.
Yep.
To attract.
We are monitoring each of those lakes this year regularly, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So you know,
Thanks.
thank you. That's one way to get out of here and hurry. Huh? Any other public input? All right, we'll close public input. And move on to finance. Michelle?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm looking for approval of the bills from November 28th through December 11th in the amount of $900,052.29.
Say two.
52 or 53?
53.
Yeah, it's a typo on my page.
Okay.
It's 52. What Rose provided is correct.
So I'll be happy to make the motion to pay the bills in that 1,052.29.
Second, coming in.
Thank you. Motion and support, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes,
Sauer,
Yes,
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
thank you.
Just want to let you know, we received some round one funding for some demolition in Thompsonville. And one house down, and I'm not sure if the trailer made it by Friday afternoon or whether that's happening this week. But we're getting there.
Good.
Still looking for opportunities in your communities for acquisition or renovation of existing structures for round 3 funding. We don't have an inventory for that kind of thing, so let me know. Auditing happened last week. They'll finish up in their offices. Things were looking good, so
Good.
no worries.
Very good. Thank you. We will move on to elected officials and department heads. Rebecca?
But I was asked to speak separately on the progression of the construction. That's probably where all the bills are coming from that are high-end bills are my bills. Rebecca Huber's Office of Emergency Management. Our construction, and I'm gonna keep knocking on wood because this is where it starts to get crazy, but Our construction on, and the lower level of the sheriff's office is on schedule for the most part as a whole. We've had a few setbacks outside, but nothing has, we just kind of changed the way we deal the cards. And on budget. And we are still looking at a end of January move-in date. The walls are being painted as we speak, probably a second coat. I believe the ceiling grid is being delivered, and after ceiling comes carpet. So, and then equipment. So we're doing well in that facet, and Grand Traverse Construction has been great to deal with, and obviously I always give kudos to Ray for his due diligence on the part of Betsy County. Additionally, Frankfurt approved the site description and for the tower. And I believe we had paid the first 10% to Motorola to move that project forward. And I'm sure we'll hear more from Tim Malone, and because I believe we paid towards running fiber to that tower, which obviously brings it along the 115 corridor towards Frank.
Very good.
Yeah, Rebecca, for the benefit of people on remote, this is Art Jeanette. When do you anticipate the build out to be complete?
For the tower?
No, for the dispatch, central dispatch.
End of January, I will have a very good idea of what might be left as far as touch-ups. There will be some things in the spring. Like we weren't able to get a second coat of blacktop on, and so we'll have to wait, and we'll have to wait for the pretty much the landscaping as well, the black dirt and seeding. We'll have to wait until spring as well, but those are have nothing to do with inside.
But they'll be able to move in before that date.
That is my hope. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I don't see any reasons to deflect from that as of yet. I guess I'll know after the holidays for sure. But all of the vendors and contractors seem to be on task. It becomes very tech heavy from here on out. Once the build is done, we have lots and lots of wires in that
Okay.
location.
Good job.
Can you share our appreciation with Grand Traverse Construction and Ray for the quality and the timing? It's been unbelievable. Our department heads, Sheriff. Sheriff, I'd just like to congratulate you and your family on your eldest son's recent appointment as a deputy sheriff, Manistee County.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
To go along with that, for those of you on the
Network.
Zoom, whatever, YouTube, Kyle Rosa, Benzie County Sheriff. Yes, NMC, Northwestern Michigan College in Traverse City has 16-week of police academy now. The very first class graduated on Saturday. We were fortunate to have a deputy in that program that we sponsored, and with help of MCOL's monies through the state, we were able to sponsor that individual, pay for them to go and pay for their college and their training. And we're very happy and excited to have Morgan Cook. She couldn't be here today, but I will get her down here to introduce later. She's going to start her field training on Wednesday, jumping right into it. And there were 10 graduates at the in that program, and they all graduated. They all passed their final MCOL's written test yesterday, so they're all certifiable. As they get the paperwork done and begin their jobs, they'll be certified police officers. And fortunately, my son was one of them, so very proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Gary, go ahead.
Just curious, now that we've got the 3 bailiffs, how quick are we getting to 24-hour road patrol?
I figured you might ask that. Someone might ask that question. So Deputy Cook will be in training and for like 3 months. And we're hoping, we have a target date of May for that, to kick that off. We've had meetings with our employees and we've talked about scheduling, and we have a plan in place. Under Sheriff and I have been working hard at it, and as many others, but that's our plan.
I don't know.
We're gonna kickstart that, and we're very hopeful that this is gonna happen. Of course, it's all contingent upon all of our employees staying with us, remaining healthy and all of those things, but we're hopeful it's gonna happen and happen at that time.
Thank you.
You bet.
Sheriff, this is Art Jeanette. Because that was brought up, do you anticipate if you remain staffed properly, will that be year round or will that be seasonal?
It'll be year round.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
You bet. Thank you.
Yep. Other department heads? We will move on to action items.
Doug?
Oh, Doug. I kind of glanced, but.
Good morning, Commissioners. Doug Duran with Betsy Senior Resources. Here to do our annual presentation for Betsy Senior Resources. Should have received in your packets our report. And I set the timer for 3 minutes since my my letter in the annual report just kind of sums it up. We rebounded very nicely at the Gathering Place Senior Center from the COVID pandemic and how it kind of knocked us out a little bit. And to know that we increased the number of clients we serve in Betsy County by 544 compared to last year. And that again, a lot of it has to do with increase the number of individuals coming for lunch and attending activities, our foot care recipients, and a record number of in-home care clients that we also got to. So the activities attendance surged from 5,764 to 8,245 last year. So significant. We kind of went back to prior to COVID. We were going to jumpstart the Gathering Place with evening activities. We did that in 2023 to get back on track to that plan. So we're doing evening activities, and that has helped as well. Home health aides. We opened the door for full-time positions to maintain the growth in that area. That always comes with more expenses, with fringe benefits and stuff, but trying to weather that a little bit. Grant dollars, we had a very successful year in our grant dollars. A lot of that had to deal with the purchase of our new delivery vehicle, which we got grant funded. And then we had the 100 Women Who Care of Betsy County, 100 women plus. We were the recipient, and we purchased a new convection oven out of those funds. So overall, our walkathon was successful that we had in August. Our golf outing was postponed in June, but we had that actually on October 1st. So that fundraiser fell into this whole year and stuff. Overall, we hit, as usual, record number of meals served. So home delivered meals went down a little bit, but congregate meals went up as we people coming off of home delivered meals who were sheltering in place went back to TG for lunch. We anticipate those numbers to kind of remain steady, if not increase more. We're still combating the staffing issues that many agencies and businesses are going through. Waiting lists are still out there. But we're doing our best to get staff and reshuffle different programs around, accommodate that. Our impact numbers are in there to review. Township reports in there. Any questions?
Got one. This was brought up the other day, and it was basically wellness checks on folks. I know your staff delivering meals, do some of that. I just don't know if there's a coordinated effort between EMS, fire, and the sheriff's department and Betsy Senior Resource to help do this. Did you normally contact the sheriff? There's
Yes.
it really gets.
Yeah, if we don't get an answer and we at the door,
Okay.
There's a policy in place, and we try to contact their emergency numbers. If that doesn't work, we go to neighbors, and then we peek through the windows, of course, and see the doors unlocked, but then we call the sheriff's department. I will say 99% of the time, they never told us that they were going away, or they end up at the hospital the night before or something. But yeah, it's been a long time since the door had to be pried open, so yeah, knock on wood.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
You're good. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. What else?
I'm looking at somebody.
It's the holidays. I'm gonna let you off the
All
hook.
right. Well, thank you and have a Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Doug.
Hey,
Appreciate it. We do have a couple of 9:30, so let's slide right into those. What, Rob and Matt from the Networks Northwest. I'm sorry, wasn't on my paper.
I have them as the last action item if you want to move into the cert one first.
Okay, so we'll move into the CERT one. Rebecca?
Mr. Carson, sit.
If I could have Dave and Deb Handshet come up, if you need to be seated, you can
Yep.
sit up front for a little bit. I know that had some back work lately. I'm going to read because I get nervous and off track, so it's easier if I just read. Apologize for that. Again, my name is Rebecca Hubers. I'm the Office of Emergency Management Coordinator for Betsy County. I'm an office of one, except for I have an extensive amount of amazing people who volunteer with me. In fact, I'm just presenting to the Board of Commission now that I doubled their pay, which is for the next remaining years. I want to take a few moments to recognize both Dave and Deb Handshet. I want to be honest, I did not tell Deb that I was recognizing her, just to make sure she got here and didn't try to flee. And so she's probably gonna give me stink eye for the rest of the few minutes that I have. Frank Post wanted to be here, but he's teaching today, and so I have an entire book of words from Frank Post that I'm gonna try to incorporate in mine and keep it to a minimum. Again, a few moments to recognize David and Deborah Handshet, both as a team and individually for their profound commitment to community. And again, these are shared words with Frank Post. I'm gonna start with David, and because Deb's gonna give me the stink eye for a little while. David Handshet is extremely dedicated to community safety and just recently stepped down from his roles as the coordinator for Betsy County CERT. CERT is the Citizens Emergency Response Team. CERT incorporates FEMA recognized training and credentials. And David has always made sure that the team has received the training and skills to assist the community when needed. I got the story about how Dave started, but my interpretation pretty much is under Frank Post, the emergency manager. He was at he had coordinated a search for a Homestead Township individual who had walked away from his home. And David was in a group that was passing through the area. And I'm going to summarize it in my knowledge of Dave was he pretty much stopped and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And then you're probably doing it wrong. Here, let me help you. So David assumed the position of the CERT coordinator under emergency manager Frank Post, and Betsy CERT became a county recognized in 2013. That was as far as I know of. And he can correct me if my dates are wrong, but I blame Frank. David has brought unwavering leadership and passion for emergency preparedness, contributing immensely to the team's effectiveness and the overall resilience of Betsy County. In 2016, David was selected as the Volunteer of the Year for the state of Michigan. He also served for several years as the chair of the Region 7 Citizen Corps Board that oversees all of the teams in the northern lower Michigan area. CERT teams, that is. Under David's guidance, Betsy CERT experienced notable growth and development, starting with 4 members in 2013 and has since grown to 32 members. His strategic vision and organizational skills played a crucial role in enhancing the team's capabilities, ensuring that they were well prepared to respond to various emergencies and disaster. And David's tireless efforts have left a lasting impact on CERT and the community it serves. And when I talk about tireless and unwavering, I just want to have a personal note on David. David has had a few medical setbacks recently, and he's standing here today, which makes us all really happy. Dave would call me from his hospital bed. So he would not like let it go and take care of himself. He's always like, oh, by the way, you're doing it wrong. You know, so again, you can't explain that much dedication. And that's there's a guy sitting in his hospital bed calling you about CERT stuff. As David steps down from the management of Betsy CERT program, the legacy he leaves behind is one of dedication, experience, and profound sense of duty. The foundation he has laid will undoubtedly continue to support Betsy County CERT and its ongoing mission to safeguard the well-being of the community. I want to thank you, Dave Handshet, for your legacy of leadership. And I got you a thing that won't stand out too much. Dustin, correct?
Let's make you wait.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just a small cog in the whole organization. And I take all my orders from Rebecca, or the emergency manager at the time. So any problems, go see her. If you want to say we're doing a good job, I'm the guy to see. But, and we're just a small cog. I'm just a small cog, meaning you commissioners, your support through the years has helped us get to where we need to be. And of course, the CERT members, they're there and highlighters. Some of them got their highlighters.
highlighter mom.
But without them, we wouldn't be anything. It's easy to lead if they wanna, they wanna do what we do. And sheriff's department, fire department, them and stuff. We've had good working relationships, which has helped us do what we can to help those departments. Wasn't always that way when I first started, believe me. It took some doing to get everybody on board. And I just appreciate it. And thanks everybody for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Dave is very special. Speaking of special, I won't let her sit down. And I didn't, again, I apologize. I didn't tell you because I'm like, well, you'll be like, oh, I think I got a thing. I can't. I'm too busy. I cannot drive over there. So I had to con her into telling her it was all about Dave. Sorry. It is important that we individually recognize Deb Handshet for her amazing commitment to everything in her community, not just the people, but the animals and the environment. Deb has most obviously been part of Team Handshet, an instrumental and supportive to the success of Betsy CERT. But it is important to me that we recognize not only the team commitment with David, but her as an individual and her contribution to when David's health struggled, but he was still present with the team, sometimes stubbornly. I will not forget that I watched Deb push Dave in a wheelchair to keep doing the job. They are an amazing team. Deb is at every training and deployment. She signs up for everything I have ever organized or planned for the team. She's trained in search and rescue management and has a national skills certification. Again, she can do everything in any CERT task that I ask her. And she's almost always the first volunteer for her time for those trainings and tasks, all while putting up with Dave and working full-time for a company. And she works a lot. Deb is also a coordinator for the Betsy County Sheriff's Office Victim Services Unit, which is a little bit separate from CERT. Victim Services Unit is a support team for grief services after a significant incident run through the sheriff's office. And she is one of our lead coordinators for that. Deb has committed years of selfless service to the community, and a picture of her should really be on Google as the epitome of an excellent human being. I got Deb her own, had to be different, can't look like Dave's. But they kind of match. Again, it has a cert on it and not just, but if his has to be a legacy award, hers is an excellence award, is an excellent. You guys can stick around for the meeting, otherwise they got a whole bunch of files. Y'all just gotta go to work.
Hey, Devon Dave, if you would, just a second. And it's, a lot of you won't know this, but I do not live very far away from you. And I can tell you both that during your struggles and health concerns with Dave, I made sure your grass was cut every day. Every time I went by, I made sure the grass was okay and you didn't need help. And I constantly look at your driveway to make sure it's either snow blowing or somebody plows it. And you took care of that graciously, but I just want you to know somebody was watching out for you. Take care.
It's gonna snow anyway, so.
Well, there's no
April.
April snow.
Tim?
Thank you for having me today. My name is Tim Mayone. I'm the CEO for Cherry Capital Connection, and we're working on internet for all Benzie County, which is a 230 mile, now up to 230 miles of fiber, passing about 5,100 homes, or about 40% of the households in Benzie County. I'd like to applaud your team. 3 state efforts, availability, digital literacy, and affordability have all been, before my high office, have been your goals, and this project is achieving and made great progress over the last year towards that. On the availability, we hope by mid-January to have our first Benzie County customer connected, which would be an inland township. And that's significant progress on this size project over time. And I want to remind everybody in the audience that the 1.5 million the county gave has turned into slightly under 10 million for the county. The state took away 2.2 million, but we're going to buffer the difference and make sure it gets taken care of. That involves county commissioners, EDC, admin, Mitch, the townships, the city of Frankfurt, Grow Benzie, Chamber, Frankfurt DDA. Quite a few hands are in helping us achieve those goals, and that's really appreciated. From our standpoint, we're a relatively small company compared to AT&T and Charter and Spectrum and so forth. So it really requires that local support for us to succeed. So as I mentioned, the reason why we can get customers connected in inland is the hut place. We're just waiting on Cherryland Electric to bring electricity in. There's another fiber distribution hut constructed, waiting for Consumers Energy Power, which should be, both of those are mid-January at the Crystal Lake Township. We'll work with Benzonia and Homestead on the next 2 in 2024. We have over 15 miles of permitted under MDOT, M115 in support of the tower, and US 31 between Maple City Road and Lake Ann Road, that stretch. We have about 30 miles of engineering done, waiting for Benzie County Road Commission permitting. We have a little bit of a stumbling block there, but that should be resolved in December. And so going into 2024, as long as Mother Nature cooperates, we'll continue to plug all the way through the winter. Efforts in Frankfurt are expanded. We're going to do a presentation to the DDA how to extend this network through and including Frankfurt in their economic development. So that's availability. Digital literacy, you formed a group spearheaded by Mitch, Merritt, and Grow Benzie. It's been great to work with them. Our focus has been just educating them on the other providers in the area, making sure they have correct and full information. And we are working with Munson Hospital, actually out of Crawford County, on their telehealth effort based on fiber, where they think in emergency care, primary care, hospital, home needs, and hospice, that fiber will touch on about 70% of their current activities in those areas and improve it. So fiber and telehealth, it's almost like telehealth is driving the fiber builds. And with the aging population that we have, that's a good thing. Beads, we're not sure what the impact of beads will have on Benzie County. The area still is Mercury Broadband, what they're doing there. For the most part, other than that township, Benzie County has really positioned itself well for fiber infrastructure with Spectrum and ourselves. But it also has got an advantage. The delay in beads has lowered our inventory cost, and it's made contractors more available. So at least for the next year, we're gonna put as much in the ground as quickly as we can to take advantage of that delay in beads. Open access, PFN just announced yesterday that they are an open access network. So that's 3 ISPs in Michigan, 123net and PFN and ourselves. And we've working on agreements with PFN, ACD, and Merit to fully utilize and share resources between the assets that are out there. For 2024, you should start seeing a heavier market outreach now that we have light, or we'll have light in January in Benzie County. So it's a little easier to market and get people to commit when they actually see something done. That's about all. Is there any questions? It's been a great year.
Anybody?
I'd like to add though to your presentation for the benefit of the audience.
Okay.
The Mitch that you're referring to is Mitch Shapiro, and Mitch is somebody that the EDC hired. So your tax dollars are paying for that. Also, Grow Benzie is being contracted indirectly through the county, and your taxpayer dollars are paying for that also. So the county is taking a very big lead role in making this happen.
Absolutely.
So Tim, as I go to my meetings in the community and I talk about this internet for all at CCC Connect, is there are maps available if people want to know where their home might fall in the project timeline. Is that something that's up and running and available if people want to see, hey, is this going to impact me?
We are a month and a half behind with our
Month and a half
developers.
behind. Well, at least I can say that.
I'm not pleased with that, but we have loaded for our corporation right now, we're passing 13,000 homes of projects we have going on in the state. And every one of those homes, if you put your address in, it will zoom to the fiber plant that's being built, and it'll provide a status as to when and what activities are going on in that particular area. So they tell me this weekend it'll be available, but they've had multiple weekends that it was supposed to be ready, but we just keep on pushing them.
So it'd be fair to say in the near future,
Yep.
that will be a
It'll
capability
be
that
cccfiber.com is where they'll go.
cccfiber.com.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And Tim, the hiccup with the road commission has been about the cost of doing business through them.
Yep.
And I just shared with the group what the taxpayers are funding now. If you're not able to successfully negotiate with the road commission, how much additional expense will that be?
Yeah, so there's a trend with all this money that's out there, and road commissions in general are by the MyHigh office considered the single largest roadblock in getting infrastructure out. Just time and delay and permitting. The new trend is to charge every time we bore under a road charges $75, or Grand Traverse County is doing $150 fee. That's never been around before, but it's just raised its head over the last year. For Benzie County project, we have about 1,300 under road bores, which is by around 125 to 150,000 in extra fees that can't be used to hook up more homes or waive fees to the consumer. And that's with the government money involved, plus our own private money. We think it's unfair for that. Fees used to be about $500. Now every fee will be about $6,000 as we permit, every 9 miles throughout Benzie County. So it's a significant impact.
So at the risk of sounding politically incorrect, I think it's important for people to know that the $1.5 million plus that the county's committed of taxpayer dollars, 125,000 of that could actually end up at the road commission in order to pay for these fees.
The optics of that is, not team orientated, and that's why we're fighting that issue. I mean, we'll pay it if we have to, but we want that team spirit throughout. Like Crystal Lake Township gave us $100,000 for the project. The city of Frankfurt waived the bond requirement for the roads there. Communities are reaching out and doing everything they can to speed up the process and lower the cost. And to that, what we've done is one of the big things EDC wanted was lower cost. So our $88 is now $64. Our original $1,800 install is now $0 going into 2024 because of all the assistance we're getting from the state and especially your effort. We're starting at $0 cost of entry in Benzie County because of your support. And then there's for those who are Alice, below Alice, which means you're working poor or poverty, the cost on a monthly basis for service is $0. And then we're right now working, with an Israeli company. It's called Heights. It's an open architecture. They build out of South Vietnam, but so it is American made. Not quite sure how that works, but that's the definition legally. Will allow us to provide routers to everybody, whereas in the past we have not done that. But we're hoping to announce that in January. So, a lot of efforts towards making this succeed.
For the benefit of the commissioners, Commissioner Sauer and I will be at the meeting on the 14th, supporting your request.
We also asked our CCI engineering group to come and just talk about their, they do work in 48 of the states, and this is a very unusual fee across their total spectrum. So just to try to bring some content to it. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Well, just to add a little bit to this, it's strictly policy. So when it comes in front of the board, the decision will be made by the board. So I'm hopeful.
Good.
Yeah, they've been communicating and asking questions. I'm hopeful that with a full understanding that will move in the direction we hope they do.
Yep.
Good. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. I got to leave today. I've got an 11 o'clock to get to, but normally I stick around. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I was supposed to be with you at that meeting, right?
Ms. Kofia. If you'd like to be next, you may.
Good morning. Hello, County Commissioners and Administrator Zeitz. I think we have an appointment soon. I'm looking forward to sitting down with you. So I'm State Representative Betsy Kofia. I was last before this body. I think that was this summer, June or July. It's been a busy year, so don't quote me. But to do a first quarter report to you all as State Representative in my first term representing the 103rd, which for folks who are for the folks at home, this big puzzle of 110 districts got redrawn for this past election cycle, and everything got shifted around. So I have the honor of representing a corner of Benzie County, where my colleague and friend John Roth represents the rest of Benzie County, but my portion of Benzie is Platte and Elmira Townships. And then I represent half of Grand Traverse County, and Rep Roth represents the other half as well. And then I have all of Leelanau County, and I'll be doing a report to Leelanau's County Commission tonight. But I thought it was important to just stay in good dialogue with you folks and occasionally come and provide updates. It's sort of an end of year. So thank you for the time on your agenda, and always thank you for your service as local elected officials. I said it when I was here in July, but having sat in your seats for 2 terms as a county commissioner over in Grand Traverse, I have a strong appreciation for your role. People know where to find you very easily. You don't get to hide in Lansing like some of us might sometimes. So thank you for your service in all seriousness. I wanted to focus on a few things that maybe don't always make the headlines, but they are pieces of legislation or efforts that are moving that I think apply particularly at the county level and would be of interest. So that's the lens that I'm using. And I said it when I spoke this summer, some of my biggest focuses as a first term state rep have directly to do with what I heard in my 4 years on the county commission and knocking 45,000 doors. And now we've knocked several thousand this summer. Hearing from constituents, what are some of the common trends? And they're things like, broadband. We wrote a letter of support for Mr. Mayone's Robin grant, for example. Childcare, housing, mental health. These are some of the most common things that we've heard repeatedly. And so I've really tried to align the way I think about policy and the work I do in Lansing to what I'm hearing from the 103rd. So starting with, and I'm going to run through several things. This is not comprehensive, but some of the things that I think are of interest. First, I wanted to make sure to mention, I think it was Vice Chair Nye who asked me in June or July about the effort to implement a statewide septic ordinance. We are the only state of the other 49 already have a statewide. And you fairly pointed out to me this summer that Benzie already has kind of a gold standard. And how is this going to play if the state implements something? So I did check before I came this morning and wanted to let you know Representative Phil Skaggs' bill, which we discussed. And I encouraged you all to reach out to him. I've heard from health departments about the extra costs for sanitarians. I've heard how is this going to impact local ordinances that are already in place and working well? The bill has not moved. It was assigned to, I think it was the Natural Resources Committee, and it has not seen a hearing yet. I know he has been hearing. Rep. Skaggs served in local government too, which I think can be helpful because there's an appreciation of what it looks like to implement things at the local level. So he has been welcoming input, but it's not moved. So just wanted to make sure and give you that non-update. I suppose nothing has happened other than he's getting lots of feedback. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. The legislature has been busy this year. We have passed over, 200 bills, and I'm proud to say over 150 of them have been bipartisan. I think that's very important because that is representative of the whole state, and we should be striving for bipartisanship wherever we can. We are currently on an in-district work period until January. And I want to talk about a couple of things that you should watch for that will go into effect because of the timing of when they sent us home to do in-district work period. It had to do with the 2024 tax season. There are several reasons why we are now back home and working in district, but one of them had to do with triggering certain bills that we passed early in the session, either February or March. Don't quote me again, it's been a busy year. So 2 of them that I just want to flag to your attention. We repealed the retirement tax that had been implemented back in 2012. And it was a tax on both public and private pensions as well as 401ks. We wanted to put that money back into folks' pockets. And we didn't have enough support in the House and Senate to have it go into immediate effect for this year's tax season for 2023. So we needed to trigger it so that it would go into effect as soon as possible, which means for the 2024 tax season. And what that will mean is for about 500,000 seniors, about $1,000 recouped from no longer being having their pensions taxed. Now, this is a 4-year phase-in. I'm not a tax preparer. What I would encourage you to do is engage your tax preparer to get into those details, but folks should see that money coming back into their pockets with this 2024 tax season. Another thing that was important for us to trigger to go into effect, Tim Mayone from Cherry Capital Connections mentioned the Alice population, and that one resonated for me. I think the stats are in Benzie County, you have 30+% of your families, households are Alice, asset limited working families at or below the poverty level, near or below the poverty level. In Grand Traverse, it's similar in the 30%. And surprisingly to some, in Leelanau County, it's actually 43% of their households are Alice populations. So we implemented something early in the term that we will see go into effect for this tax season that should specifically help those families have a little bit more money back in their pockets. It is the Earned Income Tax Credit. Anybody familiar right off the top, EITC? The Earned Income Tax Credit is for working families who meet a certain lower income threshold. And in 2012, I'm very familiar with this because I was a Head Start social worker in 2012 for families in Benzie, Leelanau, and Grand Traverse who qualified for this program. It was 20% of the federal return that they would receive. It was cut the same year that retirement tax went into place. The EITC was cut from 20 to 6%. And so it was a pretty significant hit for a family. That's fixing your dryer. It's fixing your car. It's buying school clothes. It's money that those families were counting on. And so this was something I got to vote on earlier this year. We actually reversed course, and we now have a 30% EITC or working families tax credit that will go into place now for the 2024 tax season. So combined with the federal, that should be a couple $1,000s into those mostly, again, Alice population households pockets as, costs of things. I bought dog food the other day and I bought a smaller bag because the price was like $20 higher than normal. It's significant. And so that one was important to me to be able to vote for. And I'm glad that money will be going back into folks' pockets starting this spring. I do have some numbers. The Michigan League for Public Policy is a public interest think tank that analyzed our bills, and it should apply to about 5,000 families in the 103rd district. And the economic impact for local business should be about $3 million of them spending that money back into the local economy with those repairs and purchases, et cetera. All right, so brief overview of some other issues with, as I said, some county level significance that we've either passed fully and they're going into law or moved through the House or are of note and are coming up. And I just want you to know about because I'm watching them closely and I think they are important to the district. Housing. I think I told you this summer about passing the brownfield redevelopment expansion to allow the brownfield funds to actually be utilized toward housing. Because prior, and I knew this as a county commissioner, it always frustrated me, state statute restricted brownfield funds and you could not use it for housing. So do you remember, did I mention that this summer?
Yes.
Okay. I was excited at the Housing North did a summit in October, and I was able to attend one of the days when I wasn't in session. One of our county commissions in the region, not in my district, I think it was actually in Rep. Roth's district, mentioned that they sort of dusted off their brownfield. They hadn't used it in many, many, many years, and they're already building, and it will house 90 individuals utilizing that. So it was nice. We make policy. You want to believe that it's going to have impact down the road. So it is already going into place. And again, that was something with strong bipartisan support by your representative, John Roth, and myself. Another important bill that's in the works that I just want you to be aware of. So if you're, honed in on the housing thing, maybe jot this one down. There is a missing middle housing bill. There's all these buzzwords, right, as we're trying to figure out the housing issue, but missing middle bill that made it through the Senate. It made it through my Economic Development and Small Business Committee that I sit on, as does, again, Rep. Roth, give him credit where it's due. And it made it through our committee, but it got stuck on the House floor, and I'm really hoping we can move it when we get back next year. And essentially what the missing middle housing bill would do is the Michigan State Housing Development Authority has some programs that currently can't utilize any funding for this, quote, missing middle. And it's 120% of area median income. A lot of the programming and funding that MSHDA can spend is for extremely low income and low income, but not missing middle. I was at a coffee hour yesterday. We missed you, Commissioner Janot. You're usually there at the Red Door in Lake Ann. I do them monthly. And I said, does anybody know what missing middle is? And I had a woman shoot her hand up and she said, it's me. I said, okay, tell me more. She said, I'm a nurse. My husband's a nurse. We make a decent living. We cannot find housing. And she's absolutely right. It's nurses, it's firefighters, it's police, it's teachers, it's a lot of folks who, because of, we're blessed to live in an area where a lot of people want to live. Housing prices are expensive and they're being priced out of the market. So I'm supportive of this bill because I want more tools on the table, both for MISTA and for our local communities. They would be freeing up those funds to then come to the local level to have more flexibility to build. So please keep an eye on that one. I'm again hopeful that it will make it through in the new year. Very briefly, short-term rentals. That one is something that usually people have strong opinions about. I certainly have heard plenty of them. It's a challenge, right? It's the balancing of private property rights and the need for permanent housing stock for year-round residents. All I will say is there is a group of legislators who is looking at this issue. And our orientation and goal, again, is not to take tools away. We don't want to take away your ability, local community's ability to regulate that. We're looking for, are there more tools that can be put on the table and more effective and flexible tools to manage short-term rentals? I don't want to get into too much detail more because it's being workshopped right now, but open invitation. Please engage with my office if you have specific ideas, examples. I've heard from townships who feel like they've got something that's working really well. I've heard from others who are tearing their hair out, everything in between. But now is a really good time to be engaging with us as we're workshopping what a potential package of bills to address short-term rentals will look like. Moving on, speed limits and public safety. There's a Republican representative named Bradley Slaw from Zeeland. His daughter's a constituent of mine, actually lives in Traverse City. He has a bill that is of interest to me because I've heard from several communities in the 103rd where they feel the speed limit through their community is just too high and they feel like it's a risk, public safety. And the process that they've had to go through with MDOT and MSP to try to get the speed limit lowered can be quite onerous. I'm seeing you shake your head. Maybe you're familiar with this process. You have to do a speed study. Sometimes the speed study, if it shows that 85% of the people or more are driving at a certain speed that you actually think is kind of unsafe, the way the current state statute is written, the motor vehicle code can force you to actually raise the speed limit instead of lowering it. So you identify the problem, you're trying to get it fixed, you get a speed study and they're like, oh, we're actually going to take it from 35 to 40 or 45 to 50 because that's what 85% of the cars go through. Not great for local communities, not a lot of flexibility. And Rep. Slaw's bill would add a lot more flexibility. I have a great summary if you're interested. There's the House Fiscal Agency did a nice summary that goes into a lot more technical detail on how, but I've looked at it closely. I don't think it fully solves the issue, but I think it will help. And long story short, if his bill passes, I voted for it. It just made it through the House in November, early November. If it goes into effect, there would be more flexibility built in, so you could drop it 5 instead of just necessarily automatically having to go up 5 if 85% of the folks are speeding too much. And then also, it would change the current state statute, which requires a speed study, and give more flexibility to step back. Maybe you don't need to do a speed study. You can look at some other factors. We sometimes say common sense or horse sense, like, look, is this a drag strip right now? And do we need to change some things? If anyone has ever driven past the casino in Leelanau County and through Pashabastown, that's a great example. It's a straightaway. And people do drive very, very fast through there. I knock doors on both sides of the street. It's a neighborhood. The community, the tribal community lives on both sides of that road, a little setback. It was the #1 issue I heard about. So I'm very focused on this one and hopeful that we can move it through the Senate and appreciative of Rep. Slaw's work there. All right, moving on. This is just an FYI, I suppose, but there was a bill about the sheriff, the office of the sheriff and who can be elected sheriff that passed through the House. It did have strong bipartisan support. I did support it. The sponsor was a former sheriff himself, Rep. Bagol. And essentially what it would do is currently you're not required by law to have any law enforcement or corrections background to run for sheriff. And this would add that requirement that you have to have some experience in that position to do that. I don't know that he had any like huge examples. He wasn't pointing at any current sheriff and saying, this person shouldn't be in their job because they don't have the qualifications, but it was more, he felt like it was a sensible measure to make sure that that level of experience is required. So heads up that that one made it through the House. I am a sponsor on a fairly technical package of 5 bills. It's a bipartisan package. Rep. Ken Borton from up in Gaylord is one of the sponsors. And this is around guardianship and conservatorship. The Record Eagle has done some pretty significant work and coverage of this issue. And essentially you have over 70,000 vulnerable adults, mostly seniors, every year who experience, unfortunately, financial or other types of abuse by folks who you know, misuse the role that they have as an appointed guardian or conservator. Now, the vast majority, I want to be very clear, the vast majority of folks in that role are good people. They're doing the best job they can. It is not an easy job to manage someone's financial and personal affairs when they no longer can. But there had been serious incidents. I mean, one of the sad ones I heard was the day after this one elderly person was appointed a guardian. The next day they had one of those big construction dumpsters outside the person's home, and all of their personal effects just were thrown away and hauled away as a part of sort of moving them to a facility that the guardian felt they should be at. But, you know, heirlooms, family photos, all of it just got thrown away. And then people having significant amount of money embezzled. We had a gentleman up in the Petoskey area in his 90s who had just huge sums of his money taken and spent. And so this is an issue that has been a problem and was identified by the state Supreme Court when I was in 2 years after I graduated high school. This has been around since the 90s, and there've been a set, as in the study and the task force and a set of recommendations that most of them have just never been implemented. So my bill in the package, essentially we want to create some statewide standards, some guardrails, and some clear enforcement and investigation when somebody, there are allegations that somebody is abusing their conservatorship or guardianship. So my bill in the package would create the Office of State Guardian, and it would be training, resources, support, but also investigation and enforcement, because right now it just sort of falls on law enforcement. There's not an ombudsman, there's not a person whose job it is to specifically look into these crimes. Another thing I want to mention, and I'm almost done, I think I'm going to wind up with mental health here. As I mentioned at the beginning, some of what I've really tried to do is focus on things that I've heard from the district are serious issues. We have a mental health crisis in our state and our country, and I am always looking for ways that we can, again, add tools and support to our local communities as they try to work on those issues. There is a bill around mental health parity. Are you familiar with this issue where insurance companies that they cover physical health in a certain way, but for mental health support, they're often not giving the level of coverage that's really necessary, particularly for inpatient care. And so it leaves families, even if you're lucky enough to have insurance, you know, you might get 5 days of inpatient treatment covered by insurance when what you really need is 30 days. So there's a really strong mental health parity bill that would require equity in coverage. And it was very close on the House floor, but as you might imagine, some of the larger insurance companies are not huge fans of this. And so they're pushing back pretty hard. So please reach out to me privately if you're interested in maybe writing a letter of support or some other thing. But this is a huge issue. People need to be able to know that they're not going to go deeply into debt to try to help a loved one through a mental health crisis. And if your insurance doesn't cover it, that is often exactly what's happening. Another piece is telehealth, and it was interesting to hear again Tim talk about the link between getting broadband and people having access to healthcare. During COVID, insurance companies were required to cover telehealth visits at the same rate that they covered in-person visits for lots of obvious reasons. Back in 2019, it was like just a few percentage of the population who actually used telehealth visits. Now it's up to 40%. And you can imagine for outpatient and behavioral health visits, especially in a rural setting where transportation is an issue, having access to telehealth can be really important for seniors or for all sorts of folks. And so there is a bill package that would implement telehealth insurance, making sure that they continue to cover those telehealth visits at the same rate that they do in-person visits. That one passed through health policy, which is a committee. Actually, Rep. Roth and I are both on health policy as well. And it did make it through the full House last month. So I'm hopeful again that it will make through the Senate as well. And I'm tracking that one closely. Lastly, there is, I think I talked about this when I was here last, but there's one of the things that I have heard the most, and maybe it's because I also grew up in a family without health insurance. And so sometimes access to care was a barrier. And I know that's true for many folks in our region. There's access to mental health, having the facilities available, but then there's also being able to afford it out of pocket. There's an effort called the CCBHC, or the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic. Are you familiar with this model? It's fairly new. Roy Blunt and Debbie Stabenow, fellow senators, bipartisan senators at the federal level, implemented this concept back in 2014 as sort of a pilot project, and it's been spreading across the country. There are over 30 CCBHCs across Michigan now. But what it is a comprehensive set of mental behavioral health services and addiction treatment services all under one roof. And they'll work with you whether or not you have insurance. You aren't turned away for ability to pay. And it's 24/7 crisis hotline, all sorts of things. It's a really interesting concept, and I'm seeing it take root across the state, including in some parts of rural Michigan. So there is a bill moving right now that would codify CCBHCs and sort of solidifies that as part of the state structure for how we implement and provide behavioral and mental health and addiction treatment services. I'm watching that one closely. I'm very interested in it. And I just wanted to flag it for if anyone on the commission is tracking with this and has thoughts on it. I can have some input on the bill potentially. For me, the goal is if people need access to care, they need to receive the care, period. We need to find a way. And if there are federal dollars that we can be accessing to cover when they can't maybe afford to pay on their own, then I want to be doing that. So lastly, I said lastly a couple of times. For real, lastly, in-district engagement by the numbers. It has been a very busy year. I want to make sure, again, the commissioners in the community know we do monthly legislative coffee hours in all 3 counties, second Monday of every month. I've been doing them since February. We've done 30 of them so far. And the one in Benzie County is at the Red Door Cafe in Lake Ann at 1 p.m. You're always welcome. Let me see really quickly. We've had over 40 community events. I've done over 500 meetings with constituents and stakeholders this year. My team and I have helped about 5,300 constituents with just any questions that they've had or casework they've needed with a state agency. And I mentioned knocking about 5,000 doors this summer. We're also doing constituent calls, and those are just surveys. We're not asking anyone for their vote. That's not a proper use of state resources. It's just saying what's important to you. What are some of the issues? And it's been really helpful for me. I'm looking at all of those survey responses. So with that, just a little bit of a rundown. Thank you for your patience with me as I give you that report. And I'm happy to take any questions that you folks might have.
Anybody?
One quick one, I guess.
Sure.
You talked about the retirement phase-in tax.
Yeah.
So it's going to take 4 years to phase this in, starting in 24. Is that what I'm understanding?
We wanted it to start last year, but we couldn't quite get enough bipartisan support to implement it. It would have started phasing in already. You would have started to see it this year, but unfortunately we couldn't quite get enough to implement it for this year. So we'll start next year.
Phase-in. It should be.
We wanted it all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part that very curious to me how that's going to work.
Well, and again, if you meet with your tax preparer, it does get a little complex, but I would encourage you to chat with them. I was very supportive of an all at once, but they say how the sausage gets made. That was the compromise solution we were able to get. To me, ultimately, though, I thought that the retirement tax was unfair when it was implemented in 2012, and I committed to help repeal it, which we've done. It doesn't phase in as quickly as I would like.
I missed it by 2 months.
Rhonda was next.
Yeah, I did have one comment. Thanks for your report. That was very
course.
thorough. Both Commissioner Markey and I serve on our Community Mental Health Board.
Yes.
Central Wellness serves Benzie County and Manistee County.
Yes.
I would request that you speak with Chip Johnston about the
For sure.
CCBHCs and get his input. There's been quite a lot of discussion at our board meetings concerning the model,
Yes,
and there are some concerns there.
absolutely.
So if you could just make a
And the-
point of doing that. Our next meeting is Thursday, and I'll mention that you brought it up and
Please do.
perhaps have him reach out to you as well.
Please do. And I didn't mention it in my report, but I have had, I have an in-district liaison, Renee McCauley, who used to actually be the head of the United Way over in Traverse City. But she has been tracking with this one really closely, and I know has been in communication with Chip and many others on this topic. So for me, it's CMH has an incredibly important role, and actually in some other parts of the state, the CMHs have essentially taken on the CCBHC and become a CCBHC. But I agree, we should be in dialogue, which is why I am having Renee go to all of those meetings and have those conversations. And we will continue. So please feel free to tell Chip that I brought it up today. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Karen?
Yes, welcome and good morning.
Good morning.
You brought up short-term rentals and that you're looking for input. Do you know if they're going to be touching on enforcement for that at all? Any aspect of?
Can you say more?
Yes, if a township isn't covered, you know, it's not the police force or whatever, but it's, you know, the individual homes that are part of the short-term rentals. What kind of enforcement, making sure who will knock on the door if they have too many cars or it's loud or.
I mean, that is certainly a local enforcement issue. I know that there has been some discussion of having a clear state registry where you need to actually identify that you are a short-term rental, but I'm not sure that gets into what you're talking about. Karen, why don't you reach out to me? Let's have a longer conversation. I've been definitely having some informal conversations with a lot of township supervisors and township officials about how they're handling it, how they're doing enforcement. So we're sort of taking input right now, but we're trying to tread that line again of
Understood.
how do we support what is actually working for folks.
Okay.
I know last term there was a pretty big push to just sort of essentially not have it be something that locals would regulate at all. And I don't think that that's a workable model. So I'm opposed to that bill if and when it comes back up. That's something that Airbnb as a company was pushing pretty hard last term, and it died somewhere in the process. I don't know. I was at the county level at the time, but I know that's not going to work, but we're just very much in the workshopping phase of what would make sense, what does offer more tools. I mean, there's communities out west that we've researched that allow an opt-in, for example, excise tax essentially on the short-term rentals, and allows the community to then choose to capture some of those funds for housing for their workers, for permanent workers, and childcare. Some really interesting and creative models as everyone around the country is grappling with this issue. But we're not married to that. It's just looking at options.
And it is at the township level where I've heard questions.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
Yep, sure.
First, I want to acknowledge that I think you're a really effective communicator. I've had a chance to talk with you a number of times, including your coffees, and I appreciate the way that you make yourself available. On the short-term rentals, by the way, I just address that. So each township right now can hire their own enforcement officer. So that's already taking place within our community.
Right.
I would hope that you would consider whether it be short-term rentals, whether it be gravel pits, whether it be septic systems. These, I believe, are local issues. And you and I have had some conversation about this, but I want to continue to stress that I can tell you that the communities that I represent, they are very firm that they feel like they've got a good handle on it, and they want to be able to continue to make those decisions. On the pension tax, I had heard something that pension tax forgiveness was only for government employees. Is that true?
It is not. That is a common misconception that is out there, but it is not the case. The pension tax repeal applies to both public sector pensions, you know, your police, your fire, your teachers, but also private sector pensions.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just a misunderstanding.
Yeah, I don't think I'm the only one that has thought they heard that correctly. So
Sure.
I appreciate the clarification.
Of course.
On those speed studies, just for your own information, we've had people on Crystal Drive here
Mhm.
that have been long trying to get that corrected. Unfortunately, the study always gets taken in February when there's nobody around. And people are doing 45 or 50 through there when it should be 35. So just kind of, as you guys are looking at those kind of things, the time of the year that they take those studies
Right.
is critical also.
Well, remember what I said about common sense. Sometimes like we really want some more flexibility to allow for just like a stepping back and looking at those exact kind of things, like time of year, circumstance. You don't want something that's not truly going to be representative of the safety of the area. You want to be taking a snapshot that actually makes sense. And to me, again, it was the current state statute requiring you to essentially round up for a speed study. I've talked to my colleague Jen Hill, who is the representative from up in Marquette. She has some tribal communities, as I do, with the Grand Traverse Band in Town, who got a speed study because they were worried about how fast people were running their roads and elders, children, you know, the safety issue. And what they got for their trouble was the speed limit got raised 5. So everybody was unhappy. So we're really, I appreciate Rep. Slaw and his thought on this. He's reintroduced it a couple of times. I don't know that it made it through the House last term, but I'm excited that we've gotten it this far and really hopeful. I'll be nudging my Senate colleagues to move this because it's a very practical, helpful tool, hopefully at the local level.
Good, thank you.
Of course.
Anybody else? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And however you celebrate, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and
as well.
we'll talk to you again.
Yep.
Feel free to reach out anytime.
Yep, thank you. Going on 12:25, why don't we take a brief break? Get back at 10, sorry, 10:25.
Longer than I thought.
I had to look around to see. Reconvene at 10:30.
And I thought, because when it was first coming through.
We're like,
You're unmuted.
What's up? What's up? We're back in session.
Great job.
Thanks. So time to move on to action items, and we will accept the apportionment report.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Brianne Lindsay, Equalization Director. What I prepared for you today is actually the amended apportionment report. So this is the same report that was approved in October. It just contains the November election results.
Very good.
So was there a reason you highlighted Inland just to make Kevin feel good or?
Yes.
I saw that and I got nervous and I asked him, it was because of the election.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the
Yeah,
election?
so they had proposals that were on the November ballot.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was scared enough. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, he called me yesterday. He's like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
That represents his kickbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the increase, okay.
Joking. Yeah.
So we need to do another 40-29 or whatever it is.
No, you did the 40-29. This is the apportionment report. So this is the other half of that. So the motion would be that the Board of Commissioners accepts the amended apportionment report as presented.
That's what I just moved.
And
That's what I heard, Gary.
All right.
Okay.
Motion and support. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a long time coming, huh? I tried to get there a little while ago. Item A, consider approving the software agreement to enhance delivery of information to fire and EMS first responders.
In your packet, there is a memo from myself as well as a proposal from an agency called Chief 360. I'm guessing Commissioner Markey can probably tell you more about it than I can because I'm not in that realm. But it is my understanding that this program is an enhancement to the current program that we have. There have been some deficiencies to the program or software that's used by Central Dispatch.
Not an enhancement, it's a replacement.
Corey says it enhances things, so
Well,
I'm
okay,
going
so
by what he told
It
me.
has better functionality than what our current software uses.
So it's an enhancement to what's being provided.
Basically, it's what we get on our phones. We get dispatched out to an incident. Not only does it come across our pagers, but we have an app that actually can put it on our phones. Some of the enhancements, you like to be able to play back the dispatches, what you're getting dispatched for. Our current app has that ability. This new one does too. That was one of the big things. But sometimes information changes as the incident progresses. And our current app doesn't have any updates to that, where the new one will include some of the dispatch notes so you can actually see, oh, I'm not going to a car accident, I'm now going to a medical call. So that's one of the enhancements. It's better, much better functionality. Some of the things that the first responders are looking for.
So better, not enhanced.
So are we gonna have to pull that enhanced word out of this?
No, it means the same thing essentially.
But I'm not
I'll
gonna make
make
it
the
anyway.
recommendation, the Board of Commissioners accepts a proposal from Chief Technologies to enhance the delivery of information of first responders in Benzie County in the annual amount of $3,922 for a period of 5 years, subject to approval for legal counsel, funds available, Central Dispatch Fund.
20 seconds.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer.
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B, consider accepting proposal for Crystal Lake Universal Access Park improvements. Morning, Ed.
Morning, I'm Ed Hookterp. I'm Chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Sean Johnson is with me. The Parks and Recreation Commission has voted to recommend that the Spicer Company be contracted to do the design and engineering for the grant-supported park universal access development on Crystal Lake at the Crystal Lake Outlet. and we're here asking for your approval of that recommendation. Assuming, you know, if that's approved, then the next step would be for the administrator to work with Spicer to create an actual contract to do this. The proposed amount is $89,500, which would come from the grant and match program. And I'll ask Sean, who's chair of the committee that made the initial recommendation, to explain why the recommendation is for Spicer and not one of the other companies that responded to our request for proposal, and then we'll be available to answer any questions you might.
Thanks. John Johnson.
Good morning, thank you. Again, I am the chair for the Railroad Point, and we've got 5 of our commissioners sit on the committee. All 5 of us were really impressed with all 3 of the proposals. There wasn't a bad proposal that was given to us. We got proposals from Gordy Frazier, from Spicer Group, and from Gosling Zubak. Gosling Zubak was also the group that worked with us in applying for the state grant. So they had quite a bit of information coming into it in terms of already working with us. All 3 again were great proposals. We know one of the factors was cost, and the 3 proposals went all over the board on that. We're looking at somewhere around 10 to 15% of the total project cost, and we figured that was somewhere right around 80, 90 to 100,000. We had one proposal from GFA that was 138,000, and the low proposal from Gosling Zubak was 72,000. Smack in the middle was the Spicer Group, which really hit about what we are after, which is that 90,000. Their proposal was 89.5. We recognize that cost was one of the big factors, but it was not the only factor. As the group looked at it, and again, we really felt comfortable saying any one of these were fine. So then we got to the point of, okay, well, which one is going to give us the best bang for our buck? One of the things we're aware of is that we have not a whole lot of information, and we need to get it right the very first time. But if we don't get a second crack at this. So for us, it's very important to pick the group that we think is going to get it right the first time. And when we looked at the 3 groups, we thought Spicer Group had the best combination of pieces that we wanted. One, price was right there where it should have been, and that was huge. The other part, though, was the personnel. We've worked with Sean, who is one of the project directors, and Cynthia is coming from Delaware and has worked with the part systems there and has done literally hundreds of the kind of projects that we're after. The really, for me, determining factor was, though, that as we talked with all 3 groups in Zoom meetings, they had a very dynamic presentation. The thing I really liked with Spicer Group was they were very concerned with the communication to the community. They were going to start things right off saying, we're going to have these meetings with the community, we'll organize them. If one isn't enough, we'll do a second one. And for me, that was the thing that resonated greatly. Other groups are going to do that same thing, but they weren't as clear about it. The other thing that I really liked with Spicer Group was they directly responded to our RFP. Here's what we want. And when they did their original proposal, it was bing, bang, bang, here's what we're going to provide. And for me, that was very clear and easy to understand. Like I say, I'm not dissatisfied with Gosling Zubak or with GFA, which is Spicer kind of stood up above them. All 5 members agreed that, yes, that was the way we wanted to go. We recommended it to the commission last night. The commission thought it was a great idea too. They voted to support it. And today we're asking you to. The timeline for this is we got the proposals in October. We got them approved in November through the committee, got the commission to approve them last night. Doing all of this because in January, we hope to kick the whole process off. Spicer Group wants to start their public committees or public meetings in January. So for us, the timeline is working perfectly here. Again, if we're approval, it happens today, we'll go ahead and get things started so that we can look at a January kickoff project.
I say we push it back a month. Sorry.
I have a real gut wrenching thing when it comes to throwing an extra 17.5 at something. Especially after you said all 3 were comparable. Is that something that you feel Spicer would do on their own? And guys like Zubek wouldn't? I've dealt with both these. From where I'm looking at, I would go for the lower of the 2. And would that be an issue?
Certainly, it's an issue we discussed at length. Because every every dollar that's spent on engineering can't be spent on construction. So we understand that. A couple things that come into play there. One is that Spicer had some specific proposals for some money to assist in grant administration. I mean, this is a grant that's being administered here in-house. Well, they had an amount that the other ones didn't have for assisting that. So that, you know, they'll be able to, in a sense, present Katie with something. You got to put this online for the state rather than Katie having to figure it out, you know, point by. That was important. Another thing, as Sean mentioned, was a specific amount for what we had asked for community meeting. And the third thing was that as we looked at some of the line items on here, one that really stood out was a topographical survey. But start out, you know, this is a surface project that boardwalks, parking lot, universal access kayak, and Gosling was very low, $5,000. None of us believed they could do it for that. Gordy Frazier wanted $25,000. And we looked at that and discussed it with them significantly. They wanted to do a topographical survey, sort of, you know, to the millimeter on the whole site. And we said, this is great, but we don't need that. This is a surface. Spicer was $10,000 in the middle and explained to us how they would use LiDAR, existing LiDAR information for the basics of it, and then on site, the work that's needed to characterize this for what we need. So as we looked at that stuff, we said, this is the project we want. We're not sure that some of the things on the lowest bid can be done properly. And in any case, you know, we looked at all of the issues, costs, you know, when you start out, are they qualified? Everyone passed that. Then you go, can we work with them? Do they understand the project? Everyone passed that. Then there's cost, and we're really down to 2 that are within the approximately 15 that we talked. And as we looked at them, it was, you know, in this project where we're all amateurs trying to get the best project for people of Benzie County. After we looked at it all, we said this is the one that stands up a little above the others. And like you, you know, I know that my Dutch grandfather would have said, this one's cheaper, always go with the cheapest one.
Not always go with the cheapest one, but where your RFP's apples to apples. Because we've been running into that lately, where things are not the same. And then I want to ask Katie, because she's going to be the one administering this stuff, who to work with.
One of the things we talked about is that the 3 proposals were not apples to apples to apples. So it was hard to just say, okay, well, this one's at 138,000, this one's at 72,000. They're the same thing. It's like, well, they weren't. What we were able to do, though, was on the topographic survey, that one was an apples to apples. So again, even though I couldn't compare 138 because they were offering things like wetlands delineation, which Gosling, Zubek, and Spicer did not offer. So I couldn't really compare the 138 to the 72, but I could compare 5 to 10 to 25 because all 3 of those were the same thing. That is the topographical map survey that needed to be taken before they did the original design. So that one for me was comparing apples to apples. I said, Gosling, Zubek, can you do that for $5,000? Really seemed like it's like, oh man, that's like buying a Volkswagen when I really want a real car here. Spicer really struck me as hitting me with the package. Like, yes, you said enough here to tell me that, yeah, you know what the survey is involved in. You're going to do a LiDAR first, which is a cheaper way to get some of the original kind of things in. The other end of that, GFA was saying, we're going to do wetland delineation. We don't need that. Well, that's $5,000 right off the bat of that 25. So they had a number of things that they were anticipating they were going to do that I knew we wouldn't need. Gosling Zubek, on the other hand, was cutting some corners on that. Like, wait a minute, you're not doing a couple of pieces that Spicer said they did. For us, it really was. It wasn't a matter of, well, 72 really is a great price. I'll be honest with you, when Ed and I looked at first, That was my first assumption. It's like, hey, if we've worked with these guys, we know they do good work. This is a good bid. We should take it. Gosling Zubak is a great, and again, had no problem working with them as we work for the DNR grant. I do have a little reservation though, because same people that work with us on that DNR grant are working with us on this grant. The DNR grant, we had to have some extra help to get that. We did not score the points that we should have scored, make it a shoo-in. We had to bring in some heavy hitters from the Grand Traverse Land Conservancy to say, hey, this is a good thing, let's do it. For me, that was Gosling Zubak to not quite give me the cushion that I wanted as we went through that grant associate. So as I come into this next stage, I'm saying, you know, they're great, but it's a little thin.
Who wrote the RFP?
We wrote it as a committee, and
Because that always bothers me when you get 3 different versions of the same thing. And I understand where you're coming from. That helped clear it up a little for me. I'm definitely wanting to go with the cheaper, but I also want to hear from Katie.
yeah.
There's an RFP, so you're always gonna have a different version of everything,
Mhm.
because it's up to interpretation based on that agency. So, you know, they all were given the same RFP. It's up to them to respond. We can't control that they're not apples to apples. They were given the same information to start. When it comes to the administration piece, you know, Benzie County gets a lot of grants. And we're getting more and more. The Betsy Valley Trail is really piping up on their grants. And it is becoming more taxing on Rose and I for those grants. You know, Shelley's office handles a lot of grants, but you know, there's going to be a transition. And, you know, Kelly's got well, whoever the next treasurer is has to onboard. And so we're taking on more and more of that grant administration. And grant administration is almost a full-time job when you receive as many grants as Benzie County does.
I know we're headed.
So, you know, if they can assist me and provide me the information to essentially put into the system, that will be hugely helpful for Rose and I, because Rose and I at this point are taking on the administration for all the grants that are coming into our office. And that would be hugely helpful to Rose and I.
You're leaning towards Spicer too.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Sean, didn't you say also at yesterday's meeting that Spicer had somebody on staff that has done the same exact universal launch numerous times?
Yeah,
So,
again,
so they're very familiar with what we want as well,
Cynthia,
correct?
who was the project director, came from, I think, the state of Delaware. And again, we asked her about, well, we're doing this specifically, and she said, oh, she started rattling off. But it was not 1 or 2, it was dozens and dozens. And highly respected in the state of Delaware for what she's done there. So coming here, it's like, whoa, this lady's got a lot of background work in what we're actually doing.
And the understanding that, you know, the key piece of infrastructure here is universal access kayak. Well, this is not one size fits all. You've seen the one on Loon Lake, seen the one at Penfold Park, seen the one that's going in Platte River, at the new Platte River Park in Honor. And this is in a very long, shallow spot on Crystal Lake. So you need to have experience, you know, what works in this site. And we were really impressed that this woman do this stuff. When our interview. And that was a big part of making.
So was there any way of getting Katie paid for her work on this too? Does that come out of this?
No, this.
Some grants allow for
Okay.
it, some grants do not. This grant does not allow for administration costs, no.
Okay.
But it sounds like the admin the time that admin spends on this will be reduced.
Yeah, essentially Spicer will provide me what needs to be uploaded into the portal and I'll upload it and submit into the portal. There'll be very little lift on our office for this specifically.
So I respect the amount of time you guys have spent vetting this. For me, you've answered the questions, and if appropriate, I'd like to make a motion.
Please do.
That the Board of Commissioners concurs with the Parks and Rec Commission and accepts the proposal from Spicer Group and a not to exceed amount of 89.5 for design and engineering services related to Crystal Lake Universal Access Park with funds available from the ARPA funds and general funds, Parks and Recreation Department Fund.
Second.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roloffs,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item C, consider approving a
I
replacement.
do, can I ask one question? I apologize.
Okay,
So the name Crystal Lake Universal Access Park, this is a conglomeration of very valuable, very important public lands. So we have Railroad Point, Outlet, and now the Crystal Lake Universal Access Point. That name is not replacing the outlet, or does it encompass the outlet?
That name, I think, is based on what we titled the grant. Not have final name. Our intention is integrate all of this into railroad.
Okay.
And that-
Follow up to that, we have addressed that and we currently are working with Sarah Kirk. To help us with the original design for the universal access point for the outlet. One of our plans is we're redoing the entire railroad point nature plan. Is to remap it. Right now, we started off with 4 or 5 parcels, we're up to 7 parcels. And it's not the same piece that it was when it was originally. Sarah's agreed to work with our surveyors and come up with a map that again is going to represent the entire, not just pieces that we've.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And last night we heard that the road commission want to give us their property on boundary of. To which we adjacent to the full property, which we have a lease. But we're thinking again of how do we consolidate the whole thing, add a little more. But this site is definitely in part a whole.
Very exciting. Thank you.
thanks, guys. Item C. Consider approving replacement of the Sally Port overhead doors in the jail. Sheriff?
I'd like to clarify something before we
Thank
move
you.
forward. This is for replacing the hardware, which includes all of the moving parts and the openers. The doors themselves were bought many years ago and they're still good.
Okay.
So we had 3 different people look at them during the bidding process. And the doors are fine. We just need to replace hardware that's critical. The things get opened on both ends, open and shut, in and out multiple times, and they're very, very, very worn out at this point. To the point of
A lot of moving parts.
yeah, and the cables are starting to fray. I mean, it's dire. We need this done quicker than as quickly as we could. So
I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Commissioners accepts the proposal from Precise Door Company and not to exceed amount $5,500 with funds available in the jail capital fund.
Markey will support.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Motion carried.
That's what we're getting.
You're funny.
Item D. Consider purchase of the True Narc device.
So after the SRO millage was passed again recently, and the sheriff's office took the second position, it was actually brought up by Commissioner Sauer during the transfer of some funds that maybe we could have a second True Narc device that our officers' safety could be taken care of by not having to handle anything that's suspicious. And this device, if that we're looking at, would be assigned to the schools. So if there's these things are very, very officer friendly. They tell you what's in a package. They shoot this beam through there and they tell you what's in there, whether it's baking soda or harmful narcotics, fentanyl, whatever it is. And our officers don't have to open the bags to test them. It's a testament of being safe and putting a lot of security into our officers throughout their job. So the quote that's given here, just a short history lesson. In 2020, we bought our first True Narc for $25,812. That was with a 3-year warranty. the bid that we have today before you is for 29.9. And that proposal is for, normally it's for a 1-year warranty, but they're giving us a year free. So actually it's for a 2-year, they're giving us a year free. So we'll have a 3-year warranty for that price. And if we don't do that, the price is going to go up, and then the free 1-year warranty won't be part of it. So if we act now, we're going to save about $3,700 versus acting later after January 1st. So that's why we're jumping on this now.
Has the device you purchased in 2020 had any issues with it? Any warranty work?
We have not had to have any warranty work. Others have around us, but our device has been well taken care of and utilized a lot though, but we've not had any issues with it.
So I'm all about making sure that you guys have the right equipment. I don't think there shouldn't be any doubt in your mind, but Katie, I see that we've budgeted for it. But we're only in the first quarter of our new fiscal year. As you take out your crystal ball, is there any chance that we're going to run over budget for capital expenditures this year based on what you know today?
So the 30,000 for the TrueNarc, it says it comes out of the capital fund, but I budgeted a transfer from the TNT budget to actually pay for this. So this isn't being paid for by general fund dollars. It's actually being paid for by millage dollars. Just to clean up the budgeting though, it's moved into the capital fund because it is a capital purchase.
Okay, so it's not one of those items that we should put off later into the year to make sure we're staying within budget. You're comfortable that we're good?
Yes.
Okay. The only question I had.
And I did clarify with Susie, this specific device, this agency is the sole source provider of that device. I know that sometimes there's a little hesitation to waive the bidding process, but this is a sole source provider situation, so there would be no bidding to get the same device.
Sheriff, I was here when the first device was purchased and we were actually given a demonstration of how it worked. Are you surprised? Is it being used more or less than you thought it would be when we made that original purchase?
I'd say much more than we thought. Yes.
So with that, I'll make the motion
You
that.
can have the support.
Huh?
Art made the motion.
Well, Art made the
actually, I
motion
did.
already.
Okay. He
Did
started.
he or didn't he?
No.
I just asked a question. That's
Oh,
all.
okay. That the purchasing policy be waived and that the purchase of a TrueNarc unlimited model device from the Thermal Scientific Portable, oh boy, what a handful there. Analytic Instruments Incorporated in the amount of 29.9 be approved with funds available in the capital fund.
All right, well, Jeanette will support that.
Okay.
Knew I'd get a name on there.
You were reading my mind, but
Yeah.
And I just want to note, you'll see in the motion this time that it actually says waiving the competitive bidding process. When the auditors were here recently, we chatted about that, and that is a requirement to have in the motions when we are waiving policy. So you will see that more often if we waive policy, you'll see that in the motion, because it is, the auditors want to see that. So if it looked a little different, that's why.
Okay, there's motion and support. Further discussion? Roll call.
Worsakki,
yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item E, consider the purchase of one vehicle for jail operations.
Yeah, so this is a continuation of our overall capital improvements for vehicles. The van that we're looking to replace, although not get rid of it, is our 2014 van that we use for prisoner transports and everything. Our thought is to absorb that and let our bailiffs take that over, and it'll stay locally because it's got quite high miles. Instead of just getting rid of it right now, we would like to try and keep that for a bit, because they have to take prisoners from the jail and drive them around to the building down below here to the courthouse. And so there's not always a vehicle available for them, but having that accessible to them would be very helpful. So with that, we would like to replace it with a new vehicle And as you can tell, the pricing there is there in front of you. There is some equipment that's needed for it, such as a radio and dividers for prisoners to keep them, male and females, et cetera, separate. So those are things that have to be added to the cost of the vehicle. That's why we're asking for up 60,000 for that. I don't know if you have any other questions.
This is also budgeted. It was on your capital plan that you did receive at budgeting time. I will say the sheriff has asked for this probably since I've been here, and I've always been the mean person to say no. So it's time.
I'd like to make a motion to purchase the new jail van to not exceed $60,000 with funds coming from the capital improvement fund.
United supports.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sheriff. Item F. Approval of budget amendment to recognize revenue and expenditures related to funded opioid proposals.
At your last meeting, you did approve 2 proposals for the opioid dollars that we do have in our coffers. This is a housekeeping item to simply make those budget changes so that we can cut those checks to those agencies to pay for those proposals.
Cunningham moves that the budget amendment recognizing the additional 100,000 in opioid funding revenues in Fund 281 be approved.
Markey will support.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Checks.
Roloff,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item G, discussion regarding pay scales, reclassification, and consider approving proposed pay scales.
So Jackie will come up to address this more in depth, but I just want to start off by saying I've been talking about pay scales since I got here in 2021. Benzie County is very unique in its instance that there isn't really pay scales outside of the collective bargaining agreements. And this has been a goal of mine to have in place for Benzie County. It creates a nice clear picture for folks coming on board with Benzie County. I know Christine had started, but Jackie has taken it on the home run to give you what is in the packet today.
This is basically just to tag off what she said. It's just to improve transparency and give our employees that are outside of non-union, non-elected, non-department heads an idea of where they can go, where they're at, and give them anticipation of future raises. So I think it's really important for our employees to have that. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have over what's in the packet.
This is also a really nice retention piece as well, because it gives that clear picture. So that's very exciting. And just to be clear, this is just approving the pay scales. This isn't approving any changes in positions yet. That would be forthcoming. And so at those times, we would talk about the budget impact and what that might look like. But this is just the pay scales today.
So it's really like clarity then, like what other counties may be doing. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and anytime I will be evaluating and all of the positions that are included in this packet and then be bringing them forward every time I complete a reclassification. So this is just to approve the pay scales. And then, like Katie said, I'll be presenting each one as they come up. Typically, I'm going to be doing it by department. So you're not getting one at a time. You'll get groups at a time.
Okay, I'm confused.
Okay.
Nothing unusual. Is this gonna be based on time and service? To make those grade increases, is that like a step increase?
Initially, I'm going to base it off a factor evaluation, which was included. And the factor evaluation, there are grades associated, or I should say there's a score associated with each grade and each step. And that's how I'll initially place employees on there. Unless the score is less than what they currently make, and then I will place them at their current wage. I don't anticipate that happening too often, that their score is going to be less than, but I wanted to ensure that no employee is going to be making less just based on this factor evaluation. And then based off that, through attrition, we're going to be doing it based on years of service. So a grade 1 position will start off at grade 1, step 1 for a brand new employee. But currently, I didn't think it was fair to place based on years of service. I want to do it based on the factor evaluation and then determine what their current pay is to ensure that they're not making less based on the grade.
So you're gonna do the evaluating or the supervisors are?
Actually, that's a really great question. So the factor evaluation is going to include 3 persons involved. So I will do one, the supervisor will complete one, as well as the employee themselves. And then based on those 3 scores, the average is what's going to be used for the for the placement on the scale.
One more.
Sure.
And this was happened at the post office. That is an excuse. But if you did have somebody that exceeded expectation, you could bump them up at an incentive through a system like this. You don't want to do that?
No,
Don't want to even consider it?
No, this will be strictly based on, like a step increase, for example, will occur every year on the person's anniversary until they reach the top of the pay scale. And then after that, they're just going to be receiving cost of living increases. But we're trying to get away from the merit base. Will be very clear cut and very transparent of where you're going to be. I know that does kind of eliminate the ability to reward great employees, but we have really great employees here. So I think this is a way to reward them. So I think that's important as well.
I'd like to consider some way of rewarding folks that do a good job.
Me too.
There are
So
ways to
maybe
do that
consider
outside of
something else.
this.
I'll
All
come
right,
up with
thank you.
something.
Yeah, there's ways to do that outside of this, for sure. I know Manistee has went to this merit-based pay, and while it does have its merit, there is a lot of time, energy, and training that has to go into that, to determine those changes. And it can be done, and it can be done well, but we've seen it be done not well in many places. And I don't yeah, I don't want to be in that situation where, it's not done well. That's a problem for us. And so the only way you would change a grade is through an additional reclassification. So if a position morphs over the next 10 years into something much more than it is now, we could do an additional reclassification to move them on the grade. But once you're in a grade, that's that position's grade. And then it's the steps that change based on years of service.
And just one more thing to know, I won't be sharing the actual scores that are received just to protect the integrity of the factor evaluation. But if any commissioner would like to stop by to see the process, I'd be happy to show you. It's just not something I wanted to publicly share.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So this was an extensive effort.
Yeah.
Took a while. So just give us a nutshell of how you based your comparisons. Where did you look to determine where we were and where we should be?
Sure. So we took our comparables, and then I initially the general pay scale. I used the current pay scale for the large majority of our entry level positions, and then I based it on a 4% increase for each grade and then a 2% increase for each step, which was in line with our comparables of the different wages we received. And
you really drilled down too, not just on the name of a position, but what the duties were involved with the position, because that's really important to this.
Correct.
Yes.
We found that there is very good comparables in our area. And I know our goal is to be in the top 2 in our comparables. However, I did base it off our current pay scale for the grade 1 to just anticipate not everyone receiving an automatic raise due to the large bump that we already received in October. So I based the general scale on the current wage with that 4% increase per grade and then 2% per step, just to keep it even and consistent, because that was something I noticed on the old pay scales that we have, is they're not there's no consistency between the steps. So something that I wanted to clear up with this particular one. And then the additional pay scale, I based also on comparables, and I did it based on an hourly, even though some of the employees are base salary. And I took into factor the current employees and their wages on there as well, and did a similar endeavor of 4% for each grade and 2% for each step.
So the process, as I understand it, is if these tables are approved today, the evaluations would occur, and then you would come back to us at a later meeting and we would talk about impact to the budget and implementation at that time.
Yep, it'd be for the specific positions that warrant a change. Because quite frankly, Jackie is going to evaluate every position, but some may be in line based on how the scores come out. And so you're not going to see those ones because there's going to be no change. But anyone that is going to have a change, you will receive individually for individual approval. And we'll talk about that change and what it looks like for the budget and that sort of thing.
And to start the process, I'd be happy to bring the ones forward that didn't warrant a change, just so you can see the transparency behind it and see the process that takes place. I'd be happy to do that because I think it's important to see the process. I'll already be bringing some in January. Just to give you kind of a heads up, I'll be bringing district and probate court before you. So we can use them. Wally's been amazing during the process of figuring this out and coming up with the evaluations in the process. So that one will be first because they came to me first. I'm doing them in order of request. So district probate court is first.
Just a couple of comments. First, I appreciate your questions. Those were helpful. Jackie and I spent some time yesterday, and I want to comment about the merit increases. Although I come from an environment where people are rewarded in that way, unfortunately, merit increases are so subjective versus being objective that you really have to train people on how to be objective in measuring a merit increase. This is a great step towards it. The two things that I like about it is that for me, it puts it in line with union and non-union people. They both get the same benefit from it. And an employee can look out and say, what are my opportunities? And that's a great, as you said earlier, a great retention tool, a great way to attract people because there's no guesswork and it's all objective. So it's not like a supervisor. I have a bad month just before I'm going to be evaluated and my supervisor dings me. This guides them right through it.
Yeah, it's incredibly helpful when people call for some of our posted positions, and I can tell, this will allow me to tell these types of position where they would be and what they can anticipate. And it's incredibly helpful for me.
I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that the Board of Commissioners adopts the proposed pay scales as presented in the December 12, 2023 communication with employees being added to the new pay scale based on the results of the reclassification process. I'll second Cunningham.
Karen, you got a second?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item H, approval of budget amendment to recognize revenue and expenditures for blight elimination grant.
This is another housekeeping item. Our treasurer has talked about the blight elimination grant now for a while to the board. So I assume you guys know what that is, but this is to change the budget to allow for the revenue to come in and for us to write the check, as Gary would say.
So that the budget amendment recognizing an additional 125, is that correct? In Land Bank Authority Fund revenues and expenditures be approved.
9 seconds.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
I don't know if that's as enthusiastic as Gary's or.
Well, Item I, consider approving a one-year extension to the Cooligo agreement for GIS services related to central dispatch and equalization.
So about a year ago, we came before you to contract with an agency who would manage our GIS and our mapping, and they have done that for both central dispatch and equalization. The central dispatch piece you guys wouldn't really see, but if you've been on our website, you'll see our new parcel viewer, which is awesome. It's a great parcel viewer with aerial mapping. It's been a huge improvement for the community. I've heard a lot of good feedback in the community about our updated parcel viewer. So we would like to continue working with Cooligo to manage that service. And so that's what's in front of you today, is to extend that agreement. Quite frankly, the cost is low. If we were to hire a GIS person, we'd be paying a lot more than $8,500 a year for that person. And they're doing it for us. And it's my understanding from both Corey and Brianne, they've been great to work with. They're very supportive and very responsive. So it's been a great relationship this year.
Okay. I would like to make the motion that the Board of Commissioners authorizes a one-year extension to the services agreement with Cooligo GIS for GIS services, including parcel data, aerial mapping, maintenance, and central dispatch mapping in not to exceed amount of $8,500 with the option to renew annually by the county administrator for up to 5 years, and that the chair be authorized to sign with agreement subject to approval by legal counsel with funds available in Equalization Department Fund and Central Dispatch Fund.
A long one.
It's a long
Yeah.
one. Can you read that again?
That was a minute.
I would second that.
Thank you.
Now I can ask, is that split between the two
Yeah.
evenly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not evenly. It's based on the work that's actually goes into it. For the central dispatch piece, it's about 3,200, and then the rest comes out of the general fund.
All right, there is a motion and support. Roll call, please.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item J. Adopting an amended time off policy.
So a wonderful employee pointed out to me that I had the incorrect payout date for personal time payout. I had it as January 1st and it should be December 1st to be in line with all of our union contracts. So you could approve the amended policy to correct my error. I would really appreciate it.
I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners adopts the amended paid time off policy to replace October 24th, 2020 policy. So fix Jackie's error.
Great. Let's not put that in motion.
No, that's not in there.
I mean,
I
you
didn't
can put that in
read
there if you want. I saw that and I'm like, oh, man. So I appreciate it very much.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion and support. Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Item K, consider accepting the Michigan Trails Fund grant
Oh,
transfer.
here we go.
So what is before you is the acceptance of transferring a grant that was originally awarded to Benzonia Township to Benzie County. The Friends of Betsy Valley Trail, they apply for grants for the trail to pave and improve and maintain those sorts of things. And Benzonia Township supported this application for this funding. However, they'd like to transfer it to Benzie County now. I've spoke with Jason about it. Jason says it's fine. He's surprised it already hasn't been done because apparently they talked about it months ago. But essentially Benzie County has more resources than the township. We also are already administering another grant for the Friends for the trail of the amount of $400,000. So they're hoping to keep all the money together. Rose has went over these agreements and is really exploring the Betsy Valley Trail in great deal and just really getting a handle on the Betsy Valley Trail and what that means. As you all know, there's a lot that goes into the trail with prior agreements and those sorts of things. So we're okay taking on this grant. But we do want to express that the Friends of Point Betsy not do this again. If they want to apply for a grant on behalf of Benzie County, they need to come before the Board of Commissioners, period. We're not gonna, do this backdoor deal of catching up later. It's not professional, and quite frankly, it's a bit annoying. But anyways, what's in front of you today is to officially transfer the grant application and the award to Benzie County. The $100,000 would come to us. They will give us 50% up front, and then the rest is a reimbursement grant for the other 50,000. The grant has already been awarded in 2022, is my understanding. They've also requested an extension to the Michigan Trails so that this money doesn't have to be spent until the end of 2024 now. If the extension would not have been approved, we wouldn't be accepting it because it was supposed to be expended by December 31st of this year, which quite frankly, we wouldn't be able to do. So our recommendation is to okay the transfer to Benzie County for this grant. And then Rose is really putting together a nice how, what, to, where, why for the Betsy Valley Trail and the Friends so that we can make sure that the relationship is a good relationship and that everybody's needs and wants are being met going forward.
Katie, I thought I heard you say Point Betsy.
Friends of Betsy Valley. I'm sorry. There's so many Betsy's in Benzie County.
And when I heard earlier conversations on this, I felt like that these are some matching dollars. Is that right?
This is a different grant.
This is different.
Okay.
I can't remember. It's convoluted because it comes through like a second agency.
This is the Michigan Trail Fund. This is not ARPA, Spark, or DNR.
Yeah.
So it's separate. So what we've already received through the state is a Spark grant for $400,000. The Friends are matching some of that funding and fronting some of that funding. This grant is through the Michigan Trails Fund. They applied for this and were awarded years ago, back in 21-22 timeframe. And they actually worked with Benzonia on this, but now they want to transfer it to Benzie.
It surprises me that somebody can agree to be the fiduciary, sign all the paperwork, get the grant administered in their name, and then just transfer it into another entity's name.
They asked the grantor, and the grantor is fine with it. And then they came to us asking if we'd take it. It's very interesting. And what's actually interesting is that I received a request from the Michigan Trails Fund to sign a grant administration agreement. And I was like, well, this isn't for me. It says Jason on the bottom. And so I sent it off to Jason. Didn't really read it, just sent it off to Jason. Well, turns out it was this grant. And they were sending it to me because the Friends put on behalf of Benzie County on the application.
Just so I understand correctly, is it the Friends of the Trail that want this transferred, or is it Benzonia Township that
It's
wants
the
this
Friends
transferred?
that have asked to transfer it.
Kind of both in reality.
Yeah.
The Friends never came to the management council or to Benzie County, which is an issue. We're trying to clarify that, but and it can be used with this Spark grant. That just kicked that up 100 and some thousand too. Maybe they can go farther than Case Road.
Yeah, they'll be able to stack the dollars because they're different pots.
So I will make the Board of Commissioners accepts the transfer of the Michigan Trails Fund grant and authorize the board chair and the county administrator to sign any related documents in the grant application documents as needed.
Is there support?
Evan did it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In
Motion
addition,
and support. Further
additional
discussion?
question, if I
Yep.
could, please. I just need to get this straight in my mind. I realize this, of course, is an additional burden on administration for having to oversee it.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that itself is enough in my mind, but is there any new obligations, responsibilities, liability that we're taking on by transferring it from Benzonia to the county?
So Rose and I talked about this at lengths. And we both said, well, if we accept it, we're rewarding bad behavior because we're moms. And But we feel it is in the best interest to move this money to Benzie County. It does it kind of cleans up the funding that we already have for this trail expansion project, just cleans up the management of it. As far as an additional burden, it is going to be additional staff time, but based on the conversations with the granting agency, it's very minimal in comparison to what we do for the state grants, the Spark and the DNR. So that's a positive. And shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
It gets worse.
We get 50% of it.
We get
up front,
50% of it up front. And so in reality, it's $50,000 that we'll have to throw out on the line to get reimbursement for. So there is that burden or, issue. But it's my understanding the Michigan Trails grant is a very easy grant to obtain reimbursement for and to administer. So we felt that we were capable of taking that on this time.
I'm going to yield to your willingness to take this on. I'm more than a little concerned about the precedent that we're setting, that one entity can take the fiduciary responsibility on and then just very simply transfer it. That's concerning, and it's not a habit I would want this board to get into. But at the end of the day, you're saying this is in the best interest of Benzie County and the trail. See this action taken.
I spoke with Jason about this, and he agrees that this is muddy. He agrees this sets precedent. We agreed on a lot of things. Jason is happy to allow the transfer. He, it makes his life easier at the township. But I said to Jason, not again, and he agreed.
Oh, I want to echo Rhonda's concerns also. And I heard you say something about we had to front the $50,000 or some number. Does that come out of then the general fund and if we didn't do this, where would they get the 50,000 from?
So the Friends has money in their coffers. And like with the Spark grant, they have agreed to essentially front up to a certain amount of money to obtain reimbursement back so that the county doesn't have to front everything. So this one will give us 50% down. The Spark grant we have learned will also give us up to 50%, but without having to seek reimbursement for it. So right there is kind of the seed money for it. And then the Friends, my understanding, have a fairly substantial amount of money to be able to cover other things. So when it comes to the county, there shouldn't be a ton of money that we're shelling out and waiting on reimbursement for. I anticipate maybe $100,000 from the county that we're going to have to obtain reimbursement for, not over the 500 that we have reimbursement grants for. And I don't even think 100, honestly.
Because the Friends have 350 at least.
Yeah.
But if we didn't accept this responsibility, who would have to put that money up front?
Benzonia.
And I think this all came about when they approached us wanting the $4 million, whatever it was.
So kind of.
When you accepted it at that point in time, this was reached out to by the Friends. Not sure if Jason was even aware of that part of it. Be honest with you.
Like I said at the beginning of this, we have to set some clear direction with the Friends, because this, they're doing these things and then not telling Benzie County, they're not telling the township, and it puts us in a really bad position because we don't want to reward the bad behavior, but do we want to say no to all this money when we all want the trail to be a great trail in Benzie County? And so, we're working on that. Rose is working on that, really to sit down and say, okay, this is the expectation going forward, period.
Why'd they go to Benzonia to begin with?
Because we would not accept upfronting $4 million to pave the trail, if you remember correctly, which we can't. Financially, we couldn't afford to do it.
Anybody on the Trail Council acknowledge that this was not done correctly and will be done correctly in the future?
You're looking at him, yeah.
Yes.
And Rose is doing a great job trying to straighten this out. So, there's a lot of moving parts to this. So
yeah.
Hopefully we'll get it straightened out.
So our thought.
All you've done is add to my confusion, Gary. So they needed $4 million up front. Now I'm hearing something less than 100,000. How did that number change?
My guess is the Friends applied for a different grant because they couldn't get can't even remember what the original one was called.
Raise grant.
A raise grant, which was a federal grant that required us to upfront the whole thing before we got reimbursed. And that pretty much was a nail in the coffin from this board. I'm in a total agreement. And then I don't know how Benzonia accepted it. I didn't know, I couldn't understand where they were gonna.
So my understanding is that Benzonia essentially took action to support grant applications to improve the trail. And then the Friends applied for this grant under that support. I don't think that that Benzonia took specific support. So like a resolution for raise and a resolution, they just supported grant applications for the improvement of the trail. And so then the Friends applied for these grants with that township support. When they came to us, they said, hey, we need you to support this $4 million grant. And that was that. They didn't say, hey, just support and we're going to apply for all these other grants. So we said no to 4 million because it wasn't feasible. Whereas Benzonia said, yeah, we support the trail improvements. Absolutely. And so then they were used as the fiduciary on these grants. This one is much smaller than the 4 million, but they took that general support and utilized that for the application.
If we were not to approve this, does that jeopardize these funds?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How?
They'll just take it back, give it to somebody else.
Yeah, I don't think that the administration of the grant, like the time and energy is there by the other entity. And so I'm not sure that it'll end up being successful.
You know, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to take this on. I really feel like I'm hostage.
I do too. Rose and I talked about that. We feel very hostage because I don't want to say to $100,000 to improve our trail, but I also don't want to reward bad behavior. It's frustrating. And so that's why we've been talking about it, and it's, this is in the best interest. So we want to do it, but there's going to be some very clear direction drawn up with the Friends and the management council. Rose right now, it's like a college dissertation. She's going through all those documents and highlighting the heck out of them, and writing down the points of, okay, this seems to make sense, but this doesn't. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all of Rose's thoughts, all the documents, and then we're going to send them to Cole Stoker and say, okay, tell us if this makes sense. And then based on the results of that, we'll be bringing forward to you amendments to resolutions that you approved back in the early 2000s to create the management council, a change to the MOU that is currently in place with the Friends to really set the expectation so that we have this clear picture going forward of what players play what responsibility, so we don't have this situation again.
We're done?
I believe so.
Okay, we do have a motion and support. Roll call, please.
You're not?
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs,
I feel I gotta wait longer than none. Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
No.
Cunningham?
But
Yes. Motion carried.
That was
Alrighty.
that was a pause for effect, right?
Correct. Thanks. Gentlemen, item L. Presentation and discussion regarding MMP with Networks Northwest. Rob and Matt. Thank you for your patience.
So as you're all aware, Jesse over time has been updating the board on the changes that are coming down related to MMP, materials management plans, SWAC, they all have a lot of acronyms when it comes to recycling and doing what's best for the environment. So Networks Northwest is here because they really have played a very important role in all of this being talked about and decided upon. And so they're really kind of the subject matter experts per se on MMP. And so they're here today to really answer questions and talk about what Benzie County can do going forward to rewrite our plan that hasn't been rewrite since the 80s. 99. So they're here today to answer your questions and to go over what MMP means for Benzie County as well as the state of Michigan. And their PowerPoint is in your packets.
All right. Well, I'm Matthew Cook, one of the community planners.
I'm Rob Carson, I'm the community development director.
And so, yeah, I just wanted to, we wanted to give you guys kind of just a brief overview of the materials management plan and kind of what the duties and responsibilities are, what kind of the options you can look at, and just briefly touch about the funding. And then as Katie said, the per se was very key in the expert portion. So any questions you have, if I can't answer, I can definitely go get you an answer with someone from Eagle, perhaps. Or maybe I just need to look at some of the guidelines a bit more, but just wanted to give you guys kind of an overview on some of the things. And as Katie said, Jesse, he's typically at our materials management advisory committee meetings. And I know that he's in the loop of what's going on and all that stuff. So the state has, they've put a goal to increase their recyclables and food waste from 21% to 45% by 2030. They're thinking that that's anywhere from up to about $16 million worth of recyclable materials, about 3 tons of recovered recyclables, 140,000 jobs, 9 billion in labor income, $33 billion economic output, as well as reduction of 7 million metric tons of greenhouse gases. I would assume that Jesse's maybe mentioned a bit about the Part 115 changes. Those happened last December and they became law in March of 2023. That is where the counties became responsible for the materials management planning, identifying what's generated in the county, what the existing infrastructure is, what the needs and challenges are, policies, setting goals. And if you don't know, just so you know, the materials management, materials can include anything, organics, recyclables, solid waste. Boat wrap is a big one that's been coming up a lot lately, stuff like that. So there's 4 different kind of pieces to the planning process. The first is the pre-planning, followed by a planning committee and the work plan, the actual planning, and then the implementation. So the pre-planning is kind of what we're waiting for right now. As far as I know, we're still waiting to get notice from Eagle to start the process. But once we get that, the process will be starting. And one of the very first things would be the Board of Commissioners for the counties will determine who their county approval agency is. And kind of going along with that, some of the stuff that'll happen even before that, I think, is determining how we're going to do the planning, if we're going to do a multiple county, a regional, if a county wants to do a standalone, go out on their own. But kind of, it sounds like there's been pre-discussions, at the MAC meetings, and Rob attended a meeting with, I think it was Grand Traverse, Benzie, and Leelanau. And they had some discussion there as well. So it seems like we're maybe leaning a little bit towards multiple counties, which is perfect. That's kind of some stuff we've talked about at our MAC meetings. So one of the things is kind of that I wanted to come to you for were to kind of discuss what your responsibilities were. So in that packet, I did list them out. Those are from Eagle has a guide for the materials management plan. So those are taken from that. once you get that notice of intent to start the plan, we will, well, I don't want to say we, you guys will determine who the county approval agency is. And the county approval agency could be yourself. If you guys decide that that's not something you want to do, then it would go to the municipalities and the RPA. But you guys kind of have the first choice if that's what you guys are wanting to do. The benefit to doing a multiple county plan, A is the increased funding. So you get $60,000 for planning. You get $60,000 per year for doing the state for doing the solid waste management from the state solid waste. From the solid waste management fund. Additionally, there's a 50 cents per capita bonus, which is for up to 3 years. And then for each county that works together, it's a 10,000. So for if we do a 3 county, it'd be an extra $30,000. You guys, the board would be the fiduciary for that and would distribute that to whoever the CAA is. Again, you guys could be the county approval agency. The county approval agency, they kind of they appoint the DPA, they appoint them the materials management planning committee. The materials management planning committee is the ones who oversees the DPA as well as the work plan. So they're kind of helping guide the work that gets done. The DPA, the designated planning agency, they're the ones that would conduct the work. They would do the plans, all that kind of stuff. Want to say, so as I mentioned, Networks Northwest, we do the materials management advisory committee. And as part of that, in the past, we did the materials management county engagement grant, which you guys hopefully have heard of. And that looked at partnerships in the region. It was a regional plan, all 10 counties in our region. It examined the partnerships, looked at materials management challenges and opportunities, planning process challenges, and steps to assist with the development of future programs and facilities. So kind of, like I said, we're still kind of waiting to get that official go-ahead start. But we just kind of wanted to get some of the information to you guys so you kind of know what to expect ahead of getting that letter, because there are deadlines. So I think it's 180 days once we get the notice to submit a notice of intent to plan. And then once that is done, I think it's 120 days to what it is. Yeah. So I guess if you guys have any questions or whatever it might be, I know that we'll keep Katie in the loop. And I know I just got asked about I think attending a meeting with Grand Traverse County to kind of determine one thing that they mentioned was that they didn't feel necessarily that they had the capacity to be the DPA. So I think they were maybe going to talk to us about being the designated planning agency, the one that would kind of coordinate everything. It doesn't necessarily have to be us, but yeah, any questions?
I would just add, it's from Networks Northwest perspective. We are not looking to maintain ownership and be the fiduciary if that's not desired. What we just want to see is regional collaboration. As you're all aware, waste streams, private industry don't typically respect jurisdictional boundaries. Waste is transferring, going over borders, one jurisdiction to another. Private business spans multiple community jurisdictions, whether it's counties, whether it's township. We just want to see through the efforts that have taken place previous in determining waste streams, those private entities that are involved in the local units of government, as well as the waste accumulation numbers that have come out of this previous study. try to move forward with a regional approach, whether that's multi-county, 2 counties, or we see that as being the best fit for our region as we go forward. Networks Northwest will obviously have a role regardless as a representative on each of those individual committees. And if the county so desire us to take a stronger role as a fiduciary agent, we're happy to do so, but it's completely at your discretion.
Well, as I've talked about before, I've met with Deb Allen and Chris Forsyth of our neighboring counties. We've talked about the opportunity to work together. And so far that seems most favorable to the 3 of us. At least Benzie and Grand Traverse, Leelanau, we're not sure of yet. But the idea is to work together. Obviously, there's more funding, so that makes, that's a big seller right there. But, we all share the same resources. We share the same waste haulers. We, share all those folks. And these committees require certain folks to sit on the committees, being the waste haulers. Well, we want them to go to 47 meetings or 2. There's that, thinking about that and respecting people's time as well. And so we're leaning towards working together. We haven't worked out the final details yet as to who the CAA would be and all those sorts of different things. But I wanted you guys to have a nice update and to be the opportunity to ask more questions, because this is coming down. We don't know exactly when yet, but it is coming in the near future. And so we need to be prepared to make some of these decisions.
My question is,
Ask away.
I hear the 60,000, is that per entity or
Yes.
total?
Okay, so it'd be 180,000. If Benzie, Grand Traverse, and Leland all work together, you get 180 plus the 30 for doing a multiple county. It'd be 210, and then yeah, I was trying to do some quick math, whatever, maybe another $60,000-$70,000 on that. So yeah, it's more than.
We're waiting for Eagle. That understand?
In a lot of ways, it's my
Once
understanding.
Eagle really is the one that starts the process. So right now it's kind of the pre-planning, if you will. And we're still kind of waiting for some official things to come down from them as well. My guess is it's going to be it'll be in the next year. No way they're going to do it right before the holidays, but it's also a matter of, are they going to do it the first week, or are we going to be March? Or
I know Jesse's kept us up.
Yep.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
So Jesse's been going to the different meetings with Eagle.
Right.
And Jesse, you can answer this if you'd like, but it's my understanding that Eagle has a lot of the same questions that the locals have. And that there is still a lot of unknowns. And so our guess is they're probably not going to call the start of this until they've answered some of those questions, but it is the state of Michigan. So
I did hear that, I did hear, maybe Jesse for the same thing. I heard that the bigger counties are they're not like happy with how Eagle is rolling out the process, I guess, and that's what has held up a lot of it too. Right.
So rewriting this plan is a very large undertaking. It will be. And so at this point, we're looking to partner because Benzie County simply wouldn't have, the time, the effort, and the resources. So partnering makes sense to us. I also believe in, being good neighbors and utilizing our resources to the best of our ability. And so that's why we are looking to partner with Grand Traverse and potentially Leelanau. So
Tennessee wasn't factored into that one, or
they're different in a lot of ways, so it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that could be, but I think that the way that it looks to me would be Wexford and Misaki probably grouped together, Benzie, Grand Traverse, Leelanau, and then, however, Emmett County is kind of different than Charlevoix, Antrim, and Kalkaska, but that's kind of how we're broken out with different things as it is. It's transportation, but a lot of times how they break out a region.
I don't believe there's a waste hauler in Benzie County anymore, is there? Or is there something out of Frankfurt?
I don't know if the guy, well,
Well,
the
there's
guy
Northern
in
Dis-
T-ville is hauling, but I don't know.
Northern Disposal.
Yeah, Corey Brown.
Corey.
He's gonna be a huge asset to this, I believe.
Yeah.
So there's no place to dispose of waste in Benzie County, plus
No.
we don't have any waste haulers within the county. Not talking about Corey, I look at him as different than a door-to-door guy.
Okay.
So Green for Life and
Oh, he is doing
He is
door to
doing
door.
door to door.
Corey's starting to do some in limited areas of the county and limited customers. So he's starting that, but it's still not a county fix at this point. No.
that's kind of where I'm headed with that. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. Just getting it institutionalized and getting it working. You know, and I think he's gonna be a huge asset to help do this.
So there's no action or anything to take it today. We just wanted to let you all know some added information as well as make these folks available for questions. I know periodically over meetings, some of you have questions for, regarding this topic. So I wanted to have these folks here for you today to answer any of those questions you might have, but there's no action in front of you today for this.
My email is on the very last slide. So if you do come up with something, shoot me an email.
Well, I'd suggest we try to continue this conversation for another 10-15 minutes, just to give these guys some feel good that we didn't hear from them and kick them out the door.
I think I'm sleeping or something. the whole time, Excuse me.
When you were talking about these companies being in Benzie County, isn't Northern Disposal moving in Benzie County?
That's Corey Brown.
Well,
Yep.
that's Corey Brown.
Northwest.
And with respect to questions, gentlemen, I have to tell you, my colleagues will be surprised to hear this, but I don't have questions because I don't know enough about it. I need to sit and learn more before I can start asking questions.
Okay, again, and I'm sure you've seen it in the slides, if you will. One of the pages is like a resource page. So if you look at it digitally, you can just click that. That'll take you right to some of that information.
Okay.
No, I'm in Karen Cunningham in total support of this and the coordination between the counties. And I know we broke it up when at least meetings and things I've been in, the ones that are on the lakefront, the three of us together, Grand Traverse, Leland, all, and then Benzie County. My question, but you probably don't have any answers, is in the planning phase. I think from what I'm gathering from what's available so far, the policies and the mechanisms in the planning, that's where we're going to be able to get specifics on this. Master plans, what to include. And that's an in-depth thing that if we can do that consistently with the three counties, if we're partnering with people, which makes sense that we do monetarily and also resources, that's where we're going to see a lot of the information. So I don't have a lot of specific questions for you. I just open up that door on including in the master plans and stuff. And I know I like that the county or that we're looking at this, trying to keep it to the right amount of meetings to get things accomplished. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of the answers, but I do think we've made really good progress as far as identifying the need and coordinating a needed effort on this. So, and like we said during ad hoc, we have some people in county that are using this also as something that they want to contribute, make better, make jobs, a lot of different things. So for me, hats off, gentlemen.
Yeah, like I said, if you guys do come up with any other questions, feel free to shoot them or send them to Jesse, and Jesse can pass them on to me, whatever works.
Do that.
And then we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop, and
Please do.
Sure, you guys will hear about the notice from Eagle before I do, but we'll keep each other in the loop then.
Well, fortunately, the counties and the townships have cleaned up some of those dumps that I remember
Yeah.
when I was a young child. I'm sure there was some out this way. I know there was a county.
I
gun.
could probably point a couple to
I
you
could
now.
do at this farmer's house or that farmer's house. And, yep, and you can imagine what the cost was for some of that. So,
All right,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very,
Thanks, guys.
I think it's gonna get legs and I think you'll be surprised.
yeah. I
I
agree.
really do.
Bob, question for you. Do we still have a solid waste advisory committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will we get a recommendation from them when we're at
I'm
the other?
assuming so, yes.
Okay,
And Corey Brown, we just reappointed to that committee.
so that, okay, all right.
So. Takes care of action items. We'll move on to commissioner reports.
End of the year.
At a MAC, transportation
year.
infrastructure. And to start off with the opening conversation, their presenter that was going to take up about 40 minutes of the meeting had COVID or came positive for COVID that morning. So pretty much that was a 10-minute meeting that went nowhere. General review with Commissioner Nye, of course, building and grounds. I'm gonna let Gary comment on that one. Veterans Affairs was yesterday. Business as usual, quiet time right now, but we did get all our meeting dates authorized for next year, so it'll still be on the second Monday of the month. Room 206, if anybody ever wants to join in with us. And I have a Village of Lake Ann tonight, so if there's any questions, we will move on. Art?
I'm just gonna highlight a couple of things.
Perfect.
You know, we've talked a little bit about the renewable energy. In fact, we spent a lot of time both in and out of these kind of meetings with groups. I think what's important to learn from that renewable energy bill, and we're talking mostly about solar panels, is that in Betsy County, it's very unlikely that the state will mandate anything for us because we simply don't have the capacity to put 1,000 or more solar panels out. And that's where the state steps in if there's a request for a large solar farm. All of ours are going to be smaller ones, and those decisions stay at the local level. So when you're in that conversation, I think it's important to make sure people are fully educated on that piece of it. Lake Township did approve the Headley resolution, and Karen may be speaking about other issues that happened there. And the Northern Michigan College, I went to one of their listening sessions, and they'll be holding 4 more in January. So for those of you, I know that Karen and Rhonda, I believe, have attended them. For those of you that haven't had the opportunity, I'd encourage you in January to try to get on that schedule. Otherwise, I'd open up my report to questions.
So that listening meeting, you couldn't talk?
Oh, yeah, yeah. They were listening to us.
Okay.
Good question, though.
Just gonna say, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
we have
Karen?
all the dates for these. I had it sent to me, and I don't know if I still got it. The dates of those meetings.
The January dates, I don't think have been
We don't
established.
have those yet.
I can tell you that there'll be in Elmira,
Yeah, 4th, 5th,
Inland.
7th, and 9th.
for January.
No, that's
Unless-
my December ones that.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Thompsonville, and I forget where the 4th one's gonna be, but. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, that's right, Crystal Mountain. Thanks, Dad.
Thank you from the audience there.
Yeah, right. Could you just give my report for me?
Have anything else, Karen?
Yes, the January meetings, what Nick, the president, Nestle is talking about is he's taking what he heard from us and going to summarize that. Is that your understanding? And then open it up for more listening. So it's in response. I heard you. This is what I heard. And then those are going to be in January. And I don't know, he did mention when I was talking to him that if need be, he would come and present to the board, you know, a short little thing, but that was just in private conversation. So that is in January, just like Art said. I did have, excuse my voice today. MAC Environmental Regulatory Committee, and that's why you have an update, because I was catching up on my meetings there. And we had a really great informative presentation on biochar. And I like that SWAC and Network was here because all of this, actually, the big picture, we do have a lot of elements that are working together there. So, and that information is just a nice little summary for you in the written report. But other than that, summarize about the listening session. So I appreciate that. And still meeting quite a few people in the community. And there is still concern that people want to be educated about Headley. And I said, we've started that. The articles in the paper are giving good background on that, which I thank you for that. I've referred to those quite a bit, but there's still been a lot of feedback on that. But they are approving that it be on the ballot, at least in my district.
Just to add to that, if you point them to our website,
yes,
it's a featured news. There's a big old block that says Headley Reset. And we've put a bunch of information there. And if there's other things that you think we should link there, just let us know and we can add that to that page. But we've been trying to point people there, and that's where like the PowerPoint is, and all of those things are on there.
And education was one of our big things that was the takeaway from our town hall meeting on the 30th. People just don't know. It's misunderstood. And so at least the community, they're asking the questions, and I'm able to point them in the different directions, but thank you for the reminder on that.
Yeah, it's under latest news, and it's a big block.
And then plus there's other questions.
Okay. Rhonda?
Thanks. I have been to 5 meetings since we were last here. Benzie Leelanau District Health Department. There was a WIC presentation. That's Women, Infants, and Children. The Benzie Leelanau Health Department has 690 WIC participants who spent $286,000 of benefits in the local community last year. The board approved a security system replacement in the Benzie building. There was a COVID workforce development funding request, and the board approved $2,000 payments to full-time employees as a one-time benefit for retention. The board continues to explore options to have more input regarding the health officer and the medical director, and we contract for those services with the Northwest Board. And January is Give a Can, Get a Radon kit at the health department. That's very popular in the community. I attended the Village of Benzonia meeting. The board approved road projects to be in compliance with their Act 51 expenditure requirements. Their 3-year plan will include Walker Street, Benzie Street, and Lake Street. They're also looking at non-motorized improvements. 1% of your Act 51 monies received over 10 years needs to be spent in the non-motorized categories. And if you don't have those selected, your funds are withheld. And so you need to have those projects laid out to be in compliance. The board also approved staff bonuses and the purchase of 12 chairs for the office. I attended the Central Wellness Executive Committee meeting. We reviewed recipient rights issues, approved the agenda for the next board meeting, and looked at presentations for future meetings. Shelley covered the big things in the land bank that they're doing, the demo that's begun in Thompsonville. The land bank received 2 letters of interest on Thompson Road lots. No action was taken at the meeting to determine grant eligibility to address removal of items buried on the lots. 7440 River Street, which is affectionately referred to as a mold house. I reported that there were funds there to demolish that. ServPro has determined that the mold can be remediated. So it sounds like we're going to go that route. Land Bank is going to go that route instead. I attended the Building and Grounds meeting with Commissioner Janot and Sauer. We discussed the Register of Deeds remodel and the prosecutor office remodel. We reviewed probation and parole site plans and options to move forward. We discussed the approximate life of roofs on the campus buildings. Second floor carpet was up. A second floor carpet update was given, and Rebecca Hubers gave us a security update and then identified areas needing attention. That's all I have.
You want my notes from building and ground?
No, but I appreciate the fact that I was there for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Jeanette was not at the Building and Grounds meeting.
I didn't speak there, but I will.
You could not put that in the minutes.
We're turning that in as a per diem now. Now that it's on the record.
Oh, so hear that. I attended that with Commissioner Sauer and Commissioner Roloff.
I could have gave him that. Tim,
Just had one meeting since our last Board of Commissioner meeting.
good for you.
Of the Village of Honor Council meeting, which was last night. They approved a policy on creating grant committee. And to have a formal thing on that, so when working on, yes, they have some control over that. They also approved extending their sewer to accommodate a Dollar General to go in.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, we need more of them.
Yeah.
They've got to be within 3 miles of each other.
I thought it was
Hey,
fine.
I don't have to go to Traverse City anymore, okay? Just saying.
Um,
Location
thing. The one right across from the fire department.
right next to the ice cream shop.
Yep.
That's where they
Wow.
want to put it.
No, it's and that's wetland, so they can't put a septic in.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Please.
All right, questions for Tim about his one meeting? Evan?
Parks and Rec last night, and we talked about the Spicer Engineering Group, and we've already handled that. There's also continued discussion on the role of the possible Parks Director. And they voted last night to change their meetings to 9 AM. So that would be my last Parks and Rec meeting. So next month it'll be 9 AM.
Whoever
Let's
wants it.
see. What's that?
I
Oh,
said whoever wants it.
yeah. Inland Township had its special meeting to name a new trustee, and that was Jim Brower. And he started that, and so the Inland Township regular meeting. They're looking to purchase laptops for their treasurer and their clerk. They're updating the security cameras to cover the new voting stuff. They're also looking to update their website, so they're putting a committee together for that. And the most important thing is the chili cook-off to fund the help fund the fire department. And that's February 10th. The times don't know yet. And they also did the resolution to approve the Headley, and I have that from them as well. And then we had the solid waste interviews that we did, and that's, I think, later on the agenda. And that's it.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So
This
this
is a listening session.
so you're gonna listen to me.
Okay,
The Inland Township, that fire millage passed, right?
yes.
Is there like dates set out when they expect to start doing something with that for their fire department?
Nothing that was mentioned at the meetings
Okay,
that I know of.
that's it.
Any other questions? Gary?
Yeah, I went to Joyfield. They didn't take any action on the Headley thing, and they got 3 bids on a camera for the ballot box. I thought, okay. Because they got a different ballot box than the one they had before. And they believe that the state will reimburse them, but 2 out of the 3 camera companies want a monthly service fee. Oh boy, this is gonna work out real well. So anyway, Doty's convinced she's gonna get reimbursed by the state, so they will be sending them the bill. And let me know, Tammy, how this works out.
How that works.
And they appointed Ted Wood as the deputy supervisor. Plain Township, they voted to not pursue Headley. And they had to do a motion against that because that resolution does not give you an opt-out. And they're still working on building the road commission for the election. I would wish there was a clear-cut way of doing this. That was quite a mess. And this was their joint meeting with the planning commission. That's where I came up with the issue with the plants in Yeah.
Right.
And they're still very concerned about the elections. One of the things that they were concerned about is state will reimburse up to a certain dollar amount per hour, which most of these townships are well below that. But how much of it they will reimburse for how long? And so they're kind of hesitant, but I really think they need to probably look at increasing the hourly rate for these folks. Buildings and grounds, Art was not there. We talked also about I don't know if he mentioned it, the Register of Deeds and the prosecutor's office. The Register of Deeds have their own funding, so thumbs up to that. So I think that's somewhere to go. And the other one, I guess anybody can ask for anything, and I think the best thing is to put it in the capital improvements. We'll go from there. I was a little concerned about the roof. That's one of those things you don't want to wait till it's too late. So I'm glad you guys are working on that ahead of time. And then last night was the village of Thompsonville. Mr. Cook was there last night. They're trying to finish up their Parks and Rec, whatever they call it.
Plan?
Yeah. So they've got if I even wrote it down anywhere. Yeah. They have a public hearing coming up. And they're moving their regular village council meeting to January 16th, and the public hearing will be that same day for the Parks and Rec plan, because they want to get that moving. The group in Thompsonville want to be applying for certain things, and they want the village to be the fiduciary for these things. And what do they call that? Revitalization, Thompsonville revitalization thing. So they're TARP, which I think that's been used by somebody else. They put out bids for water meters. They got none back. And so they're gonna try to do something else, and Santa Claus will be there Christmas Eve at 7 o'clock.
All right.
That's the important stuff.
Question
Yep.
for Gary?
Gary, just curious, what is the township pay now for poll workers?
Gee, I afraid you'd ask me that because I didn't write it down. I think
Poll workers.
like $12 an hour. I know,
I'm glad that didn't go any further than you and me.
I know, Gilmore increased theirs to 15 and 17 for the chairman. Their, Blaine is looking at it, but I think they're paying 12 and.
That was 14.
Is it 14 for the chair or is it 14 for all of them?
Oh, I think the regular is 14. I thought it was 16 for the chair.
Okay. But I think they're gonna have to come up because the state's offering 15 and.
State will pay up.
I have a question. You said that Joyfield Township didn't take action on the resolution, the Headley reset. Was that a no? Was that their response?
No, they did not take any action. They didn't. Claim they didn't get the resolution, but then after discussion, it was found out that, yeah, they did. And so they're gonna take it at the next meeting.
Art, I meant to ask you, did Elmira make any movement on it?
No, they are, it's in discussion. We had a healthy discussion about it yesterday, and I'm hopeful that they'll take action in January.
All righty. Katie?
Just a couple of things on your desk is the budget at a glance. I did circle a few changes that Rose has already made regarding the millage levy levels, and so that will be updated. But if there's any other tweaks, changes, or information that you believe should be on this, please let Rose know by Friday. If we don't hear anything by Friday, we will have these printed and they will be available to you shortly thereafter to give to folks. Once it's finalized as well, we'll have it on the website for people.
Katie, quick question.
Yes.
Under the county villages.
Yep.
I noticed expiration dates. There's 3 of them that either expired a year ago. There's 2 that expired a year ago and 1 that's expiring in December of this year. Am I
Yep.
reading that right?
So those are some of the scribbles I made that Rose is making right now. So the road commission, obviously, we need to add the 1.0 in there, and that now expires in 27. So that'll be fixed. Veterans Affairs will be updated as well. And then indeed next year, we will have to go out to the ballot for the jail operations. And then there is a couple more expiring next year as well. I have it scheduled for the first real meeting in January to discuss those millages, putting the jail back on the ballot, as well as do we want to throw others on next year or wait until 2024? Because technically they'll levy through 2024. So we'll talk about that at our first meeting in January.
Okay, so this sheet still needs further update regarding.
Yep,
that
I
discussion.
did some scribbles and Rose is already making those changes.
Okay.
So anything outside of that, if there's changes that you want to see, additional information, tweaks, let Rose know by Friday. And then if we don't hear anything, we'll send them to print as well as put them on the website. Okay.
Yep.
And then yesterday, as all of you probably know, we had a huge email migration, which went clunky as expected. But we're officially .gov for our website and our email now. So keep that in mind. .net will continue to work for a little while, probably about a year is our thought. But make sure you're getting the information out in the community that all of our emails and our website are .gov. So it is still Benzie Co., but it's .gov and not .net anymore. If you need to log into your new email, you should have received a temporary password. If you did not, we do have IT on site all this week. So maybe after the meeting or later this week, let us know, stop in. We can get you all set up on your phones and your computers and, you know, those sorts of things. But just keep in mind, .net, you won't be able to log into it anymore. You'll have to switch to your .gov. So that's very exciting. We had both VC3 on site as well as Carhu Cyber on site yesterday and this morning. VC3 is here the rest of the week. But Carhu did a lot yesterday. They helped with the migration and helping staff. They also worked on moving some of the servers and firewalls and all that stuff over to their services. They also did a lot of scans and vulnerability testing going on. And quite interesting enough, as they were moving some things over to their system, there was various malicious threats coming through that they were able to block. So that's very cool. They did give me a day 1 report of all the things they accomplished and the things that they started. So if you'd like a copy of this, I'm happy to share it with you. But between you and me, I don't understand half of the terms on here either, but he did go over it with me, so I can kind of explain it. So that went really, really well, and it's very, very exciting to be moving in the right direction with that. I recently received an email from the state of Michigan, from the marijuana operation and oversight grant people. And there is $17,000 on the table for Benzie County, related specifically to marijuana, but it cannot be used for law enforcement purposes, period. It has to be used for educational purposes and outreach purposes. I just got the email and it's due January 1. So I'm going to chat with the health department and chat with the schools and see if they have some ideas for me so I can try to slap together a quick grant application. It sounds like the money is allocated and it's fairly easy to get. We just have to have some ideas to use the money. So I'm going to try to slap that together with some of their assistance and get that $17,000 here so that we can utilize that for education and outreach. No law, it actually says it in bold, must not be used for law enforcement purposes. Because at first I'm like, oh, perfect, easy, but no. So I'm gonna try to put something together, but because of the tight turnaround, I don't know how well it's gonna fare for Benzie, but it's about $17,000 that we can use for that. Other than that, I don't have a ton of updates.
That marijuana money, that's in addition to our annual disbursement, right?
That is correct. Yep. This, we actually have to apply for it. It's not just the payment. Yep.
And not directly related to your duties here, but you graciously agreed to act as the clerk for the last election in Inland Township.
I did.
I had heard that there was a lawsuit going to be filed against you and the township.
That was the rumor.
But it hasn't happened. Is that right?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Neither is Tammy. So,
I've, to the appropriate people, I've voiced my concerns.
yeah,
Um,
I also
hopefully you
told
won't hear
Tammy I'd
anything.
never say yes again. Ever. Ever.
The Inland Township residents, thank you.
I know they do. but Never again.
Married, I didn't expect you to do it anyway.
Right, yeah.
Oh, geez.
But other than that, there's, I don't have much going on. And like I said, I'm gonna try to throw in that application, but they gave us less than 30 days to do it. So, but if there's 17 out there, I'm gonna try for it.
Good, thank
So.
you. So no study session, minutes, committee appointments, SWAC, Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Had an interview with Corey Brown. Everybody at that interview was really impressed with Corey, and I would entertain a motion to reappoint him to the Solid Waste Advisory Council.
I'll make a motion. We appoint Corey Brown to the 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025, December 31st, 2025 on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Second, Cunningham.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to note that you will have information coming forward to you regarding SWAC. So part of our discussion was specifically that SWAC it's a local Benzie committee, kind of like some of the others have been. We have found that it's hard to have a quorum or to even find people to appoint to that committee. And so we discussed amending the bylaws to shrink the size of that committee so that it's a bit easier to call them together and find folks to serve on that committee. So those bylaw changes will be coming forward to you after they go to SWAC to shrink it from a 7 to a 5-member board. We have no intentions of kicking anybody off. It would be through attrition. So when somebody's term expires, we wouldn't fill it to get us down to that 5.
Good. So there is a motion and support. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? So moved. No new business. Correspondence. Our final public comment. Paula. 2 minutes.
Paula Eberhardt, Benzie Register of Deeds. I just wanted to have a couple comments regarding my remodel in my office. The statute does call for me to provide the title searchers or whoever uses our records a place to search. And the reason they got thrown out into the hallway was because of COVID. So that was a temporary situation. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to map out a legal description, but we've noticed with the uptick of court now not being Zoom, you have a lot of court people in the hallway. I can't imagine those people trying to map out those descriptions and make things work and the surveyors coming in. So what I want to do is just as minimal, try to make them a little room within our office that they could search. So that's where that's coming from. Also, I didn't know anything about the roof, but was that referring to this roof?
Yes.
Okay. We did have an incident probably about 6 months ago where we heard something dripping and it was in my vault right above our books, which would be a huge cost to the county if something happened to those books. We've had some counties that have gone through floods and had to replace. So it was an easy fix, but I'm thinking it's probably due time that we look into
Getting
the
close
roof.
is my understanding.
Thanks, Paula.
Okay.
Yep, appreciate it. Annie.
Annie Browning from the Village of Beulah. I'm just gonna kind of reflect on this meeting and share what I'm working on also. So I loved the presentations this morning. I'm sorry, I'm kind of spacing. The emergency management, those presentations, they were it was stunning. It touched my heart. Anyway, when Betsy Kofia, when she got up there, I really like what she had to offer. She really is going for common ground. I like that a lot. Village of Beulah, that's kind of where my head is tonight. And you know, village work. We're moving ahead with the clearing of the spoils from our stormwater settling ponds. It's taking some time getting bids and such. Anyway, I think that's about it. Thank you for all you do. I really appreciated everything that happened today. I love seeing people working together for a positive future. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
Thanks, Annie.
For everybody or one piece?
One piece.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Close public comment. Whoa, hang on.
Just to let you know, organizational meeting will be the first Tuesday in January. I believe that's January 2nd at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
I'll be here. I have a doctor's appointment, I cannot.
And also, this is the last Board of Commissioner meeting for 2023. Thank you all for your patience. I think we've done a great job for the citizens of Benzie County, as well as the employees of Benzie County department heads, elected officials, everybody. That's a good place to be, I think.
That's it.
You're done?
That being said, I look for a motion to adjourn. Rhonda?
So moved.
Okay.
Sorry, Evan.
I was gonna vote no.
Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.